Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the UPL. We are kicking it off with the casters right off the get-go here, and we're going to be going into what is going to be a matchup that both me and my co-caster are super excited for. You can see my cat's full of energy back here, Rebel. It's time for what is going to be a heated matchup here.
Yeah, your cat's always full of energy, so that's not fair. But we've got an exciting semifinal matchup here tonight between Revival and, of course, AOE Randoms, which is previously just Randoms who are doing phenomenal in their group. Both of them one seeds coming out. Very, very limited losses between the two of them. Should be a matchup that we consider could be finals caliber. We could have easily seen either of these teams in that finals match competing for the #1 job. So this is bound to be an electric match. We saw Revival in a similar position in that last split as well.
Yeah, this is something that they know. They've been in this situation before, finding themselves against tournament favorites right before you get to the big grand stage. And this is where you're swinging for the fences here, right? Both of these teams. This is honestly, if we have to look at this, this is a finals caliber match that we are looking at right here between these two. Something to take note of, as you will have it addressed on the screen here, is we will see one miss ban from the side of Revival here, and that is going to be just in the first game here. So big thing that they're going to be missing out here, especially with the amount of insanely strong champions that are out there.
And so, surprisingly, also, the ban didn't actually come because, of course, they were a little bit tad late to the lobby. It was actually because their lateness caused us to miss a fantastic death segment set up by Ravish, Beatdown, and our guest tonight, OPTSM fan, who will be on a little bit after the game to make sure things are still on this time crunch. They lose a ban, we lose our desk. Not an equal trade because our desk is extremely valuable, but Revival took the end of that one, so they're going to be able to miss that one ban here in this first phase. And you guys are going to be able to see the phenomenal Ravishing Ravish, Beatdown, Boulevard, and, of course, PTSM fan immediately after the game. But we're getting into the action already. We got some bans flying out here from both sides. We've seen some crazy stuff at MSI too. I'm curious if these teams have picked up anything since then.
Yeah, we're going through this ban phase here, and one of the things, Rebel, I don't know what your opinion might be in regards to it, but you know what? I love the fact that we're seeing a lot of differences inside of AP junglers. So I am curious, looking between the matchup between Pulp and Josie here, if we will see that, because I feel like that just opens up the champion pool so much more when you see picks like Lee Sin and Yone being very prevalent champions in the meta. It kind of opens up for more diversity in some of these comps.
And it helps, especially when you've got somebody like Sudsy here for the side of Revival, who's got this massive champion pool. I also know competition was at least to our knowledge, going through some of the tryouts very recently, and so it's now coming back. Oh, hello.
Yeah, there we go. We're back into it here. Lost you for a quick moment there, dude,
Okay.
but we're back at it. And yeah, as you get to see this, I do like this, though. AOE Randoms, it's definitely put in a lot of respect over here on some of these champions with flexibility, right? Diana taken off the board, Nocturne taken off the board. Makes perfect sense, where Revival is more so targeting this bot side, which I think is fair, right? You don't give Shore Hop Jinx. We've seen what AOE Randoms have when Jinx is picked on their side, and Shore Hop just looks so comfortable on the champion.
He does. Really good combination between him and Pocus, especially when Thresh is left up, and especially with the way that the draft is currently going, since Revival doesn't have this third ban. There's going to be an OP champion left up. The one that pops immediately into my brain is one that a lot of people might recognize as Rumble, which is, it's been under some scrutiny at MSI, contingent on its performances and things. I saw a bunch of things on Twitter about how like Freak posted stats and people were mad about it. But in any case, Revival's still super high priority for flexibility and its adaptability to top, mid, and even into the jungle role. Still available here. If Revival wants to snag that one away, they would give up the Thresh, but now you don't give up the Thresh Jinx combo, which is super pertinent here for this side of AoE. Random short hop Focus, love to grab that combination of champions.
Go ahead and lock it in, please. Go ahead. Yes, it is the easiest first pick of your life, and I agree with you, D-Man. This is a champion that's so very strong with the flexibility and the power it belongs in, and honestly fits into all the three players on that top side, from the jungle to the top to the mid. It fits into the playstyle of Revival very well. Now, AoE Randoms, they get their choice on how they want to have their countermeasure for this pick.
And it's curiosity that comes out. I like the idea of potentially picking bot lane here because you still have Thresh available and they can go to the likes of the Varus, which is good for short hop as he's perfectly capable of playing that one. You got some flexibility with how he's built as well, where you can go into on hit or you can go lethality, and the Thresh allows for repositioning. And also it challenges this team fight where like Rumble's not the most mobile. When you throw that ultimate down, if it's not positioned perfectly, all of a sudden you have to get within melee range to really be effective on this Rumble. That's where the ultimate from the likes of the Varus can come out. I actually hadn't even recognized that Morgana was still on the table as well, so they traded off Rumble for the Varus Morgana, and there's flexibility within that pick as well. Morgana amazing at support as well as in this jungle position where you've seen it really adapt to, and I'm sure that Jossie's more than capable of taking that one. It's not that hard of a champion to pick up. If you haven't done it yet, you got to do it pretty quickly because I'm sure there's going to be some taking off of some of the power eventually to this champion. But for now, really good trade of champions. High clear speed here for Jossie to try to affect the map as fast as possible.
Also, the Varus, I honestly just came from casting Oceanic Scene, and I got to see a Oceanic pro by the name of Claire to dumpstering people with Varus in the mid lane. So, you know, who knows? Maybe competition has that up inside their back pocket, but over here onto the other side, flip it around. You got Jhin that's locked in. Easy as 1, 2, 3, 4 for them, and Nautilus as well. Just a good duo to be able to pair it together.
Putting that testament to the Black Shield here possibility between either Jossie or Pocus within these team fights. There's a lot of CC to pair with that equalizer coming out from Rumble. You talk about the W coming out from Jhin. Even the ult shots are enough to really put some damage into somebody. If you slow them down long enough, you can end up catching them with a lot of the soft CC before you have like the W from Jhin come out, and then all of the abilities from Nautilus, which pretty much CC in its entirety. So there's quite a bit already of team fight here in the side of Revival, really relying on that. We know this is a team that's very, very good in the 5-on-5. They do put a good amount of pressure inside of Scooped to do a lot of consistent damage. Not really the case here with Jhin, which means likely Concept or Sudsy going to pick up something a bit more reliable within that scene. We know both of them are capable of doing so. Concept came off of that hiatus in the previous week, has done some really amazing things. I'm excited to see what they've cooked up here for their top and mid lane to try to get this team fight some consistent damage, since Jhin usually doesn't really fill that role.
Yeah, Jhin is needing a little bit more here. The fights that they will have around these objectives will be pretty interesting. So, yeah, I'm curious, right? I want to see exactly what does Revival have planned for themselves here. You got actually a lot of power picks that are available, a lot of strong blind picks as well here. And, you know, it's going to be over on AOE randoms. What did they want to secure for themselves here? I think probably your best answer, right, is to just secure something in that top lane. I'm very curious. You know, we still have champions like Gnar that are available. We still have a lot of blind pickable top laners that you can pick up for yourself, and we'll be curious to see what Shim is going to be put away on.
Discussion, I guess, with like the coaches, and I know Ravish did a bunch of work behind this, so give a lot of props to him because he does really, really good investigative work in helping kind of give analysis to these teams. One of the big things that was talked about, at least Ravish had mentioned to us, was this idea of Concept versus Chim. This is something that our producer also loved to hype up, as these two, there is a big question mark behind who's going to actually win this. Concept came in rushing like a fire in the previous week when he stepped back onto this Revival roster, but Chim has stepped in as somebody who was pulling MVPs left and right for this AOE random squad that went undefeated during the course of the split, and so the effectiveness of these two is a big deal. While competition potentially will get a counter pick here onto Sudsy, it may be a bit difficult to spot because of the flexibility of Rumble. I almost would prefer they save this for Chim, only to make sure that they've got that possibility in their back pocket, and that means if you have an AD champion here, something relatively safe or something consistent that you can run for competition, now would be the time to pull it out.
Yeah, now's the time to be able to pull out all the stops for sure here. And this is a game where you get to start build momentum. Inside of these best of series, momentum is ever so important, as we do see them currently hovering away at the Gnar, and they do lock it in. So Chim will be on the Gnar here, which I am going to be curious, right? You're going into Concept. Silas is still open. We have seen that be a very interesting counter pick into Gnar.
And the ultimate is just obscenely better in just about every single way, as there's ways to get Silas into this backline, and it's instant. You don't have to wait for that Mega Gnar transformation. But at least AOE randoms, knowing that the laning phase could be rough in the wrong situation, ban out two of the biggest counters. Aurelia, which is the biggest, and then of course you have the Wukong, which is a Concept special. But we talked about this before this has started, which is that he's been playing a ridiculous amount of Urgot, which is excruciatingly punishing to the Gnar. I know if you happen into the wrong circumstances and you pull an E at level 1, you can just get burst down immediately as the Gnar when you're you're in that mini form. It's really tough to navigate that lane if you allow the Urgot space on the initial couple of waves. So Concept willing to pull this one out. Another good consistent damage threat and somebody who can fill a frontline role here for Revival. Getting 2 of those big niches, you just need some AP damage behind all of it and some team fight to boot as the Orianna gets locked in. Even more utility for the team, shielding. Really, really good team fight setup, and I love the laning that they've gone for here on the side of Revival.
I'm right there with you on this. The laning looks impeccable now. AOE randoms. You see the Orianna. What is your Nets pick inside of this matchup here? As we will see the Echo getting hovered here. If this gets locked in, there you go. We will see an Echo inside of the mid lane here.
He will. I am curious whether they're willing to flex Morgana into the mid lane, because that's at least a possibility that Echo jungle still does exist to some extent. But we've seen far more Morgana jungle to consider that that's even a possibility. Instead, it's a bunch of dive potential to put onto the likes of Jhin, onto the likes of Orianna into the backline. And this is competition saying, okay, gloves are off. I'm going to throw something down in this first best of 5 here to try to get into the finals for the side of AOE Random, where they're looking to make a name for themselves. They're looking to develop it. We've seen what Just Randoms has done in the past inside of UPL and with some of their previous players stepping into much larger roles and some more solidified organizations. These players are wanting to do the exact same thing. And right here, competition, this is his statement up against Sudsy, one of the more defined players, one of the better players that a lot of people consider in the mid lane position in this amateur level. You're looking at competition saying, I got the counter pick. I am the Echo player. Now, it's not Sudsy who's made a name playing this champion. He's willing to take the namesake into the Orianna here.
I like it, man. There's a sense of swagger, there's a sense of momentum that you want to steal away. There's a sense of like, haha, I just stole every move you've got. What you got for me? Is one of the most insulting things you can do is just take something that somebody else has worked so hard to craft and beat them down with it. And that's what I'm looking forward to see, if this is what AOE Randoms is going to be able to do. I'm also very excited to see Varus, right? Because Varus is a champion that I've seen some Twitter posts from some of my colleagues when it comes down to fellow casters and whatnot, where they've said Varus builds have been getting out of control. I've seen people talking about like the Nasher's Tooth on Varus inside of solo queue, and of course I talked about it a bit earlier where I've seen Claire over in the Oceanic region who's been playing mid lane Varus, who's been doing the Muramana into Luden's Echo. It's obscene the amount of build variety that we've actually seen from people playing Varus and how they've been sneaking in this AP Varus in there. So I'm very excited to see this Varus come out, and I'm excited to see what kind of build path Short Hop does decide to go for. As it's very interesting. We're back to Varus versus Jhin after such a long time of seeing these two in the bot side.
It takes me back to the days of like Ashe, Varus, Jhin, where it was just utility bot lanes, and that's all that these champions were used for. I know Claire does some crazy things because the Dire Wolves are crazy. The whole region is a little bit crazy.
Yeah. I love it, dude.
It's pretty great. It's great to watch some of the stuff that they're able to come up with and test. But one of the biggest things for me in this one is that there's a lot of space to be built forward, but not a lot of return space. And so that, to me, also begs lethality. Varus comes out here to try to test Orianna. Make sure you can't step forward for shockwaves. And the same to come out from your standard ADC, the same to come out from the Urgot. There's not a ton of armor that gets built really naturally inside of any of these builds. For the most part, they're going to be forcing it in, which means lethality is going to have its effects, I think, a lot more, and it's going to keep you safe because there's not a Thresh pulling you out. There's not a Tahm Kench to eat the Varus so that you can just walk forward and get all these lethal tempo procs. Instead, it's going to be the Leona who's throwing a Solar Flare, pressing her E and going into the middle of the team, and all this sudden you're just completely empty on the backside with potential of everybody jumping into you. If you can set up that 5-on-5, or if you're winning this game, you can go on to on hit, and I think that's something to pay attention to, is like how well do they manage playing in this 5-on-5 against a Revival team who set up such a good team fight.
Also, I'm going to be very curious. You talk about team fight, and I feel like we have to flip it over and talk about the Orianna pick here, right? This is the queen of team fighting. When people say Wombo, they finish off the combo with an Orianna ult on top of it, man. This is the core champion that we've seen time and time again when you talk about team fighting. And I want to talk real quick about the fact that when it comes down to like a ball delivery service or anything like that, that's not something that's actually very consistent, right? Like you don't really have a dedicated person that just jumps into everybody with a blink or leaps into everybody and you get this big shockwave that gets layer on. You have to work. You have to control where your ball is a lot here. And I personally am going to be keeping my eye on Sudsy because you already hit on it. Great laning phase, right? But After the laning phase, how do you set up the balls? How do you set up these shockwaves? How do you create these moments for your team?
Ideal situation, like this ball is going to be used for a number of different ways, which is like I think mostly the engage that's coming out is going to be from like Morgana binding or Varus ultimate, and then like Leona, which is all pretty distant. And then you've got people jumping in, which is going to be the combination of like Leona and Gnar, and that bit of distance that gets separated, that's where the ball's always going to be positioned, because that means that Varus can't step up, especially if he's going to be on hit Varus. Echo can't really step up because he's a melee champion. And that challenge is something that Sudsy's always been really, really good at, is making sure that teams have to be honest when they're stepping up into fights like this to ensure that they you can't just like walk through a team fight, play back to front by getting into that backline immediately. Sudsy's going to make sure that you do your diligence and you make sure to stay front to back. And I actually like that short hop goes for lethal tempo in a way to try to keep this front to back. But again, if you step into the wrong position, all of a sudden your front to back is gone because Sudsy just erases this Varus with no protection on his back line.
Absolutely love it. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going in now to game number 1 of this best of 5 here between Revival and AOE randoms. And we are just seeing a standard 5.2 come out here from both sides. I do want to real quickly hit on the fact that we do see Josie piloting the Predator onto the Morgana here, as well as we do get to see the Electrocute onto the Echo here inside the mid lane. So do get to see a little bit of fun stuff coming out here, hopefully, especially on competition.
I feel like right here, like Josie has so much potential to affect his lanes, mostly because there isn't really a fantastic lane to look when you look at this across the board from the side of AOE randoms, where it's like top lane should be good for Concept. Concept should be able to get a nice check on the Chim when he passes by this top lane Scuttle Brush. Except Chim's going to take the safest pathing. That's really big respect from Chim, knowing that this could come out and those shotgun knees do not make it easy for you to trade at this early levels. But again, these laning phases do not look particularly enticing here from the side of AOE randoms, which means that this Morgana's got to put in some work to try to break out some of these members to make sure that they can compete for things like Scuttlecraft. Look at this from Concept. He's not even stepping to his wave. He's just auto-attack trading with this plus the attack and with these shotgun knees, knowing Gnar has no chance of ever competing in terms of that damage department in these early levels with the Urgot.
Yeah, looking like an Urgot up there in the top side is Concept, and you could see a lot of this going back and forth, trading happening all across the board. Everybody really looking to put the hurt on as competition, taking a couple command attacks there from Sudsy. Not the way you want to play that out, as you can just see. The laning phases are definitely very aggressive across the board.
They should be. Again, you've got range advantage in the mid lane, which means that Echo, until you get some of the AP to begin with, is not going to have the wave clear to match Orianna without just losing a bunch of health, which is what's happening to competition, especially because of who you're playing against. You think about that exact same thing in this top lane, where Urgot's going to be able to control the lane. Look at this right now, 0 CS to the 13, and the potential setup for Pulp to deny Chim any additional, and he's been spotted out on a ward, but it's just going to cause the Gnar. This is a 0 CS Gnar in the earlier stages of the game.
Gosh.
He might have to burn TP just to start CSing. Like, this is exactly what the problem is going to be from the side of AoE randoms. It looks like their bot wave is at least in a decent place where this Varus and this Leona can play very aggressively, try to beat up on the Nautilus. This was an old-timey counter pick to pick the Leona into Nautilus because you beat it from melee range, and Jhin doesn't have the DPS to actually compete with the Varus with lethal tempo on the back-end fight. So that's perhaps the one place that you can actually move is Josie. I would love to see some pressure be put onto Sudsy so that competition can start roaming to bot and also come up to top side. That's what we're getting right now.
Yeah, asking you will receive, but a flash bind does not connect. Does force the flash away from Sudsy there. So will be what you can chalk up as a success as a jungler, blowing the summoner.
I can agree. And especially since, like, Jossy's running Predator, which means that, like, the Flash, when it comes back up for Sudsy, it's not going to be there faster than the Predator is going to be up here from Jossy, which means if you can get to level 6 as fast as possible, all of a sudden Orianna steps past, like, the mid-river, boom, you run in with Predator, and it doesn't matter that you can't flash away. Even if the ultimate's up, you throw the black shield on, she's going to get stunned in place, she's going to get rooted in place, she's going to get restunned in place by the Echo, and that's going to be very dead Orianna. So that's going to keep Sudsy pushed back a little bit, going to buy a bit more space for competition to work with here. The CS has been rough to start with, but it should improve slightly with competition, or at least not get a ton worse as long as this is played properly.
A decent little lane game coming out from Josie over here into the top side. It's going to get spotted out by a beautiful ward from Concept, so just real good awareness of what AOE randoms is going to want to do here. And so far, got a good read off of that. Rumble is also doing an invade here as Pulp trying to see if he can find any camps, but none are currently available.
It's a perfect little ward right there that's going to be able to snag. Actually, bottom lane, we get some action between the two. Short Hop's really low.
Yeah, doing a lot of damage on the Short Hop. He's trying to trade back. He's looking for the trade, trying to play aggressive, but it's first blood going over to Scoop. Pockets is over here onto the backside. Pulp is laying him down. Competition is going to have to get out of harm's way. Finds the stun, doesn't get the anything past that though, as Sudsy was able to dodge out on that. That Competition will be able to stay alive. Makes the dragon turn against him. Sudsy's actually in a very dangerous situation. The dragon doing a bit of damage, but Sudsy will make a retreat, realizing that this is not a duel that they want to continue to take.
Really, really surprising that ended up actually flopping very heavily to the side of AOE randoms. This looked like it was going to be completely Revival favored. I thought they were going to end up picking up 3 kills, but Pocus doesn't go down, and neither does Competition to their respective laners that came in on top of them. Competition catches mid-wave as well, as this is just a play right now where Short Hop finds the initial engagement into Goo. It gets traded for Scooped, I believe, who picks up the first kill. And this is the TP again. Pocus is probably just dead to the world. I want to see what happens on that top side. It looks like it's just a flash that gets out. And Sudsy tries to get Competition, and the Blast Cone is able to get him over the pit, but the Dragon pushing him back combined with the additional damage means you can't really contest the Echo, which made it so hard to continue that chase to come through. Honestly, Sudsy, I know hindsight's 20/20. If you commit for that kill on Leona, you probably get it.
Beautiful catch here, though. They find Pocus out here inside of the river, and this is going to be them being able to beautifully find this for themselves. The blast shield is there, but it's just going to be the 4th shot to finish it off, and that is going to be this Leona going down.
It is desperation that Scooped needs a couple of these kills, because you see right now it's about double the CS right now in the bottom wave. I'm not sure exactly what's happening to cause this massive disparity. It seems like that's just a little bit of CSing that's been missed by Scooped more than anything inside the laning phase, because it wasn't this massive crash or something during that last team fight or anything like that. So again, the Jhin picking up a couple of kills is going to be helpful for propping up this early game CS deficit that you fall into if you are on the side of Scooped, and they get a little bit of vengeance because of course the Leona missed out on that previous fight. Concept is here waiting for Jossie.
Oh my god.
Oh my
Concept
goodness.
with the awareness of where Josie's going to be at all times whenever he comes to the top side. Concept. Phenomenal work on this Urgot.
Jossie's out here chewing on the chess pieces in 5D chess.
Oh,
bottom side
Short
of the map.
Hop
What is happening?
finds the kill there, and that's the danger of this Varus lane.
That it is. CC combination between the two. It looks like the ultimate was popped by Short Hop, able to find that onto Nautilus, and that combination of damage. Like, Leona does a deceptive amount, but also that execution, all the damage that comes out from auto attacks, lethal tempo, makes it easy for the all-in to happen on this bottom side for the Varus Leona lane. So at least a kill responded to. The massive brain play from Concept to catch out the opposing jungler on the counter-jungling path means that Pulp gets to get a bit of a CS advantage as well as a level advantage over Jossie, and that's just traded for the kill on the bottom side here for the Varus, where Short Hop is actually getting himself a bit of a lead to try to play that front to back the way that AOE randoms are going to try to, and make sure it doesn't get caught by that the shockwave coming out from Sudsy. And as long as that comes through, maybe the Varus can carry these fights.
Yeah, maybe the Varus can, but a scary thing to look at is just the disparity that we are seeing a little bit in these lanes from Revival, right? You're seeing a lot of things here. Like, look at the Orianna CS differential between Competition.
Yeah, that's the benefit of the range champion. I think Competition also just kind of roaming around trying to assist the rest of these lanes. You do get a quick little rotate actually after this last back to make sure the Rift Herald comes through. I'm seeing if there's competition to be had, because I know Pulp just backed and the Equalizer is available, but nobody's here to actually support this. So it is just going to be Scooped heading back to the bottom lane and Rift Herald to be snagged by this team. Like you said, looking at lane advantages, ranged advantage in the mid lane, that's going to happen for the most part. Competition was able to snag a kill, so that helps at least a little bit of what's happening on. And then the kill in the top lane for Concept, I think, is a big turning point, but that's going to be negated for the next couple of waves only for Short Hop and Pocus.
Oh, Josie.
Snag that. What is going on right here? Yeah,
they're looking for the Soul Shackles. It's going to be a shockwave. Beautiful flash coming up from Josie. Josie's going to be able to get away, but he's going to find himself getting in chain. Concept looking for a solo kill. Pocus, you're going to be feared. It's going to be a lot of damage coming on in. They're going to turn their attention over the Short Hop, throw him over the shoulder, and that's going to be a kill for Sudsy as yet again Concept with the setup to finish it all off.
The Urgot's a little bit of a raid boss already. I don't know how that happened immediately in this game, but think that's just the case. As Concept, he is an amazing solo queue Urgot player. We knew the danger was absolutely lurking here for Chim, and this counter pick that they gave him has been working out already within this laning phase. Chim's trying to find some aggression into Scoop. I don't think Scoop actually gets out of it. Focus trying to help.
They're looking for it. It's going to be the Nautilus. Was trying to run interference, but it wasn't enough, and that is going to be a good shutdown. Going over to this Nars competition, looking for a possible kill onto Pulp. Was not spotted as he dashed over the wall. So we'll be able to catch him if he face checks this bush. Pulp doesn't know. Could be spooky.
He doesn't. Notice double flashes were burnt for short hop, but that does free up this bottom lane not only to shove in, but also to snag this dragon away for the side of AOE randoms. The problems still lie on both sides. Again, right now it seems to be the solo lanes. This is typically where Revival ends up finding their advantages for the most part, is usually from concept and sets who do some incredible things. To note in this game, at least, however, is Sork Shoes are completed, and eventually what will be like the full mythic that's going to come out from the Rumble, which will start to make a very dangerous team fighter. And again, Scoop to being behind isn't the biggest deal in the world, because the focus is much more to try to set up the consistent damage coming out of Urgot, the ultimate out of Urgot, and then of course the Equalizer Shockwave that can do some ridiculous damage into the midst of a team if utilized properly. So right now, I feel like the concern is not being addressed to necessarily on the side of AOE randoms, even though the gold is in some of the right places. They're not going to be able to slow down the game plan that Revival's got right now unless they're able to take control of rivers and prevent this kind of lower range composition from accessing any of the pit areas, because that's where you can set up flanks, you get Gnar involved, you can get Echo involved into the backline, and that's when chaos starts to ensue, and it's harder to use the Shockwave and the Equalizer effectively.
Oh, Rebel, how many times have we said, like you talked about Revival, this is just textbook for them. How many times have we said AOE randoms look like they shouldn't have won the game, but in the first 10 to 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden they turn it around in one mid-game team fight? Like, both of these teams definitely are still like playing ways that we've seen them, like AOE random. This is nothing new that we've seen from them. Something to take note is the laning phase maybe something that they're a little bit less coordinated, but once we get into some of these mid-game fights, this is where we've seen AOE random shine. So maybe they're going to try and find their position to try and get into that situation where their strengths are as Revival. Like you said, their strengths definitely here at home when they're able to play around in these laning phases.
Now, for AOE randoms, of course, they came into this series not just like series undefeated, but just game undefeated, having not lost a single game over the entire split. And that comes from everybody on this team being able to carry. So the fact that competition's got a kill, the fact that you've got some gold onto short hop as well as a pretty definitive advantage. Chim still has yet to die and is still perfectly fine engage. There's nothing wrong with AOE randoms at this moment. It's just that Revival has had tenacity in the past and in previous games, being a proving ground scouting town type team with a bunch of players who have these aspirations, same as the side of AOE randoms, and they've been able to have some of these clutch performances themselves. That's why it's nice to see the early game setup at least going the way of Revival when they've got a team fight setup that's kind of designed around using these big ultimates, as that's going to be really valuable. Rift Herald dropped in the bottom lane, no shocker there, because you want to get short hop some additional gold. TPs, I think, are available here from everybody. Pulp was kind of hovering this area, but it is just going to be the couple of plates handed over to the bot lane here on the side of AOE randoms, and the rest of the map just clear right now. Looks like everybody's taking some resets, getting ready for what will be a dragon here in the next 2 minutes, as well as any other plays they're going to be looking for in the meantime. I love that Jawsy's still hovering around Sudsy, making sure that this Orianna's kind of trapped in the lane.
Yeah, I love this. This is absolutely beautiful coming out from them. They're being very mindful of these neutral objectives here. But while this is all happening, you look over onto the other side here. Rumble did get to have a back hit, the reset for themselves here, and it's going to be able to have a little bit more items. Not quite at the Night Harvester or anything like that. Not quite at that point just yet, but is getting the itemization towards that end. And it is going to be something to take a note of, man. We got an Equalizer. We got a Shockwave that is available here. And we know these neutral objectives, these fights are going to be cluttered. And those are two champions that will make perfect use of everybody being in the same place at the same time.
Be really nice if we could see Revival somehow get Plux, that is the Nautilus, of course, out of this bottom lane. I love that they switch their names every single week. But, like, if we could get Plux out of the bottom lane, pair him with Pulp inside of the river, inside of other lanes, and things of that sort, it would be fantastic. But I love the fact that, like, AoE Randoms was prepared for this. Instead of going defensive and going Tahm Kench or Thresh or something that might be avoidable by Jhin by running something like Cleanse, you have the fear that Pocus is able to hit multiple CC abilities, especially with Flash Up, which means Jhin can't just sit in the lane on his own, which is one of the strengths why Jhin gets picked from time to time, is if you pick something safe, usually he's got the wave clear to deal with it, especially when you go for the Gale Force and you have that added mobility of not only the crit auto attacks giving you movement speed, but also that basically like 60-second cooldown flash that you get for the Gale Force, keeping you relatively safe. Doesn't exist in this one with all of the CC that come from the combination of short hop and focus, which means that the Jhin is a lot harder to try to use in this side lane, making it more difficult for the likes of Flux to cam. Yeah, I'm a little curious what's happening here. They made the rotation of bot to top. Short hops down here trying to punish this tower. Concept came to catch this, but there's multiple people getting ready. This is, however, the strongest member of Revival if they're trying to make this dive happen. He might get caught out, though.
They're looking for it. The binding, the CC, lock him down, throw away the key. Concept looking to try and turn it around on the short hop, but they're not going to be able to find it. Instead, it will be a shutdown gifted over to them, and it is going to be an Infernal Drake that they're going to be looking to kill Enterprise. As we've seen some action in the mid lane while this tower is going to fall, but nothing else to happen. Sudsy did use Flash in that mid lane skirmish while that was all happening, and Scoop does grab a tower on the opposite side, but like you said, interesting movements coming out from both sides here.
And more importantly, I think Revival does go for the Rift Herald play, which is a bit interesting to me. They're trying to keep this gold up as the team fighting team, which is to be expected. But they're giving this win condition of just dragon stacking over to the side of AOE randoms when they've got this composition that's got so much pick potential, which is a little worrisome to me, especially now that Short Hop's picked up so much gold. I actually didn't mind that likes of a TP right there, but you had to be ready to pull the trigger on a TP from Sudsy to make sure that you could double defend that with like a shockwave or something, because if you're able to do that, you can do that kind of thing. And it seems like there's a pause inside of the game. But right there, again, I think a defensive play on bottom side would have completely thrown off not only the tower take, and also maybe netted a kill or two, but it might have also shut down Dragon while Rift Herald was getting taken on the opposite side of the map, and a tower was being traded. Even if you bring in one extra person and pull both back from the tower, and then just are prepared for a fight around Drake, all of a sudden it becomes a lot higher risk from the side of AoE randoms. Instead, they just commit the TP to bot side. Concept tries to catch the wave, can't quite get ahead of where the rotation comes in from the Leona and the Morgana, and just gets picked underneath the tower, unfortunately. It is basically an even gold trade, but still.
Yeah, I feel like it's a big case of miscommunication too there. Like you touched on a lot of points that I do agree with. When I saw the TP coming from the Urgot, I immediately looked at the map, and the rest of the side from Revival is actually moving up, which is a very curious case there. Usually if you see a TP like that, I was like, oh, they're TPing to make sure Urgot's down there and ready for the dragon fight, make sure he's already in the position to make sure that that play happens. And that they don't move together with the Urgot, which you even said before Urgot goes down. This is the strongest member. This is Raid Boss. This is the Urgot that is definitely a pivotal part of your team here. And it's just a very interesting decision coming out from their path. And like you said, opening up win conditions is never something you want to do for the opposing side here. And you see here, they're looking to fight. They're looking to scrap. Concept is going to be able to find this. Short Hop is in a terrible situation. Short Hop, you got a little bit too greedy, buddy, and you're going to have to pay the price.
Yeah, first off, one of the best equalizers I've seen in competitive play. I know this is a bit rusty for junglers because it's been a couple of seasons, and even at like MSI, we're seeing some not fantastic equalizers. That was amazing from Bulk, because if you run directly through it, you're tanking a good amount of damage, and you're able to have that catching angle from the two members that were there. If you run up into the brush, you're just running through an equalizer, you die to that. So you have to turn back towards the tower, but again, that angle is relatively short. It allows for Concept to catch him with the likes of the Stride Breaker, and while there's a good amount of health traded back because of lethal tempo and the Kraken Slayer, it's more than enough to get that kill and to deny additional damage onto the mid tower, which is the attempts here from Revival to try to keep that bastion of hope up so they can contest towards future Drakes, trying to eliminate that win condition from the side of AoE randoms, or at least allow themselves access so that they can try to team fight around it, which is their real win condition.
Yeah, Chim is looking to fight this one out with Concept. Does have Josie in the back, is going to be able to gnaw out. Chim is laying in the damage. The Predator is there, and this is Concept getting caught out here inside of the bot lane. And fantastic play started off by Chim there.
Blitzed down mid lane did Revival to at least trade a bit of gold back, so it's still that 2,000 gold advantage for them. Being down 2 dragons is tough, but at least you still have this gold advantage to work with. I do, again, it feels like their pieces haven't really come together yet. There's a bit of supportal combat right now as it looks like some wards are coming in. Sudsy's actually here to try to support this. Focus gets pulled back.
Yeah, they interrupted the sacred combat here, and it's going to be them turning their attention. They get 1, they get 2, a double kill. going over to Pulp as Chim looking to just throw the boomerang around and dissuade them from anything further. But they got the inside track on this mid lane here as competition's nowhere to be seen in the mid lane.
To say actually, because we haven't really seen this team come together for the most part, which is the dangerous part about this, is when you get this Nautilus and this Jhin and all this decent like range CC with like the hook and the depth charge and things like that to add on to a Shockwave, add on to an Equalizer, this team becomes ridiculously dangerous as a super long range, almost pick composition where you can work your way through a team really quickly. They hadn't put that together till right there. You got to see it for the first time, where it was the Shockwave that pulled back immediately onto Focus. You saw a couple of shots from Scoop to slow down the ADC. Now Concept in another 2v1.
Yeah, he's in another 2v1, but he's looking a lot more comfortable. Competition's going to have to rewind time to get out of this harmful situation. This Concept's going to find himself going down yet again. Competition finding that kill, and this is 3 kills back to back to back we've seen on this Urgot that were caused by just being a little bit out of position here. And now it looks like Revival is in a tricky spot here as well. They're getting the Solar Failure, they're stacking it onto the Nautilus. Nautilus taking a heaping amount of damage. Short Hop going to be able to find that. The cleanse coming from Scooped is going to be able to keep him safe. And also AOE randoms, they're looking to scrap. They're looking for fights where they can.
They are. You see Pulp, he has Equalizer to try to clear the wave. It looks like he's actually just gonna... Okay, no. That seemed a little
beautiful
late.
use of it! Short Hop deleted off of the map here. Josie trying to get another auto attack onto that tower there, but it might just be enough to spell his doom. The Black Shield's going to be away, and that's going to be Scoop flashing forward, finding that kill. Concept is over there onto the side as well as Orianna secures that one. Chim's over there on the side, and this is the easiest Baron start of Revival's life here.
This is incredible. I'm really upset, perhaps, probably, just because my good buddy, LPL caster Mazel's not here to see the first ever useful Jhin inside of an actual game. And you see the reason why right there. And it's because that W is such a lethal tool from a distance to add on to the Equalizer, add on to the ultimate from Urgot, add on to a Shockwave to set up the rest of the damage that comes through. They catch, again, this team overstepping. Yes, they got a pick previously on a Concept, but that's all they were able to grab. And then they try to blitz up mid lane, but that Equalizer is such a dangerous tool. I was convinced Pope used it too late, but they weren't setting that up. They were trying to set up the pick onto the Varus, and it wasn't enough. This is the danger you have. Without TK, you can't pull Varus off the top of that Equalizer, and he just gets melted. No tower. Kill goes over mid tower. Now, actually, competition on the hunt for Scooped.
Yeah, is looking to see if he can find him. Is going to be able to rewind time, back it up. You're still going to go down, though, as Pulp was waiting there. Waiting to catch you off guard, as that's going to be another kill. Pulp 5-0-5 here, and laying out the red carpet. Burn them alive. It's a barbecue out here. Pulp is still looking to overheat here, trying to lay out the damage. Shockwave going to be dodged by the rest of AOE random side. Varus is poking away over onto the side as well, laying out some damage of their own. But it is just a 3v3 Predator pop. Josie looking for a possible angle if they see it, but Pulp still alive. Sudsy still alive here, and this could be a scary situation. Short Hop is in a interesting spot, but so is Chim. Chim is Mininar, going to be able to lay out the damage that's going to be needed, going to be able to find that kill onto the Nautilus, but going to be caught out of position there. Pulp is godlike, and now we're seeing a TP coming in here. Looking to see if competition wants to rejoin the fight. He's going to be able to look for Sudsy over here onto the side. He's going to be able to go back to the mid lane. Scoop rejoins. They're going to be able to lay the red carpet down again here inside of this Dragon Pit. It's going to be the curtain call coming on through. It's going to be Secure Dragon for AOE random. Pulp is going to find a lot of damage being put onto him over onto the back side. It's going to be competition. Picking up the kill onto Pulp. It's going to be another huge shutdown, though, as Short Hop finds Rumble by the edge of his HP bar. Sudsy is now being hunted down by competition, looking to see if he'll be able to find him, is looking to see if he can catch him out, but no, just gets the shield and is looking to run away. Now it's going to be Concept rejoining the fight. He is going to be able to hit that Strike Breaker, be able to lay out a lot of damage. Solar Flare is going to be able to stop it, and that finally is going to call to an end of the action for now.
The AOE randoms, man, they are not letting Revival prepare or set up for a fight. I like to call it set their feet whatsoever inside of any of these plays. It's completely off-tempo attempted fights just to pull member after member after member away from this entirety of the team fight. When you put the Nautilus and the Jhin together and you've got all this damage and the pick potential from an Urgot ultimate, that's great. Competition goes down here after the trade that had gone down onto Scoop, so all of a sudden you're down CC in exchange for something else. Equalizer comes in and you're able to trade yet again 1-for-1 because Concept ends up going down, even though, you end up missing the Shockwave, which is humongous. This turns into a 3-for-3. They end up trading again because what'll happen is Plux goes down to Chim, and these are the problems, is like, you don't ever get your chance at a 5-on-5 fight. Pulp, I think, uses another great equalizer to try to push off Short Hop and Jossie, but it's just not enough as competition, again, splits off Sudsy, who has no mana, and ends up getting a kill onto Scooped. These are problems. When this fight splits, you're far less valuable as individual champions than when you're actually able to play together. As you see right here, Pulp is insanely fed at this point in the game, but didn't able to spend his gold, not able to bring down the combination of Short Hop and Jossie. And because of that, AOE randoms walk away with shutdowns and gold, and the third dragon setting them up for this soul point. You see Revival strength. It's very clearly there, but all AOE randoms are just completely disallowing any semblance of putting together the pieces.
It's like every single time they're able to find Exodia. They're drawing Exodia every single time. They're on 4 pieces here. They're waiting to grab the 5th, and somebody plays card destruction. They're deleting the hand, and they're looking for more deletion here, though, as Josie's going to take a lot of damage. Be brought in, get in my belly, says Concept, as he's going to be able to find the kill onto the Morgana, but he's going to be quickly revenged here, as Concept is looking to be the target of competition here. Competition laying out the damage. It's going to be Nautilus left by himself. Is not going to be able to find any way of escaping from there, as that's going to be the shield that comes on through Chim. Going to be able to get an excellent stun, throw him back, hit him in there, lay it off, and then it's going to be a beautiful equalizer coming out, laying out the damage. It's going to be Pockets getting taken out. Now the curtain call coming through, not going to be able to connect on Short Hop. Will cancel it out, and that is just going to be everybody. That was a 3-for-3 there, Rebel.
This game is stressing me out, Travis. Every single fight is just so back and forth between the two, off the back of one person hitting big ultimates. It started with a shockwave from Sudsy, but it was the equalizer again from Pulp that ends up turning it. And AOE randoms are so close to breaking this game back in their favor. You see Short Hop starts off this fight super low. Competition finds an amazing flank, but that big stopwatch, as well as the shockwave, stall out the remainder of the fight, keep the ultimate or the alive for the Rumble. Concept ends up getting picked off here because competition is really starting to come into his own in terms of damage, and the fight continues. Again, separated is the side of Revival, as everyone's kind of in retreat mode. Scoop is trying to pick up the wave, and they're just abandoning Plux. Chim goes way too far right here, and as people end up following up on this, Pulp finds an amazing equalizer inside of this little corridor. Look at that damage. It's so crazy.
Disgusting.
It's just not allowed, man. It's not allowed. When you can get these nice little fights, Revival's so strong. AOE Randoms has done such a good job breaking these fights into pieces. Eventually, someone's got to bend, and someone's going to break in the game. And right now, I feel like AOE Randoms have the advantage. They've been finding this separation, and they've got this dragon stacking under their foot. They could wait for late game if they wanted to, but they absolutely could just continue this process of playing off tempo, pulling members out of this Revival fight, and attempting to take the fight from that point as long as their Varus is alive.
I gotta shout out one thing about AOE randoms before we get into the action yet again, because I'm sure we're about to have another fight with the way these fights have been breaking out here. They've been phenomenal at punishing the mistakes Revival have made. Revival has made so many over-aggressive moves. They get an inch, try to take them out, and AOE put a stop to it immediately every single time. And you gotta love to be able to see this resilience, to see them lose a member of their team, and they're just like, oh, this person's overstepped. Let's capitalize on it. AOE Random doing a fantastic job of that. They're going to have to see if this will be their chance to grab Soul Point, though, as AOE Random's not in a position right yet to contest it. And you can even see Chim trying to keep that rage bar built up and ready to go for the next fight. Ooh, Pockets, Solar Flare, Concept getting jumped onto. Beautiful equalizer yet again, though. Is going to be able to lay out the red carpet. It's going to be 2 kills that are going on over to the side of Revival immediately, and AOE Randoms are falling to shambles. Chim is caught out of position, is going to fling them over to the other side, just trying to waste a little bit of time, but a triple kill for Pulp is all she wrote, and that's going to be an Ocean Trade. No, they're looking at it, but they got the pings on the Baron here. They're gonna let Concept solo it. This could be scary, actually. They still have an echo.
Do watch and make sure the competition, because if he solos out Concept in the midst of soloing this dragon, this could just be Soul Point here from the side of AOE Randoms. I'd honestly rather watch that.
They're fighting!
Oh,
Concept wins!
Concept won it! Okay, never mind. We're good. No worries. Okay, really, really well played. Good clutch in the gulag there from Concept to make sure he doesn't end up going down to the Echo, as that could have been pretty fearful if they end up losing the Ocean Soul off the back of that fight. Which, by the way, for all intents and purposes, that was AOE randoms just massively overstepping. It feels like they don't understand the concept we've been trying to press, which is that when they break these fights apart, that's when things look good. But you engage into 5 full members. Their pieces are together right here and right now. The puzzle is stuck together with glue, and they still tried. Yeah, not only that, the Shockwave, also Pocus and Jossie both got caught in that on the backside, forcing them into the equalizer. So 2 members are dropped immediately. The CC is still here, and no one's there to do damage because competition has to ult out the back of the fight. It's so clean from Revival when those pieces come together. You've seen it time and time again. That was the first time all of it really came together in one cohesive mess, and that's now netted them the 7,000 gold lead they currently pilot, as well as slowing down that Ocean Soul point here from the side of AOE randoms.
Honestly, Chim is looking to try and help out his team, make sure they're able to get this blue, but Pulp was waiting in the wings. But Pulp is, we were talking about raid boss being Concept. That was a lie. Pulp is the raid boss. Concept was just the halfway boss throughout the dungeon, right? But then you get to the end and you get to see this Yordle take pilot inside of this mech, and honestly, this has been the drill that has been piercing everything that AOE randoms wants to set up. Beautiful work coming out from Pulp inside of this matchup, and really, like you were talking about, questionable stats people have been brought in, both professional and an amateur, and you see this is exactly why people put so much priority on this Rumble when you get to pilot it to such effect. Concept getting caught out is going to get stunned. This is going to be Concept going down, so gets taken out immediately. But on the side, they're looking for a fight. Curtain Call has been called here over onto the side, trying to lay out some damage onto Josie. Caught him on the side there. Those hips are too wide.
That is well played, although from the side of AOE randoms, since now there's no side lane threat with the Baron to worry about. Again, this is how they should be playing, is just constantly pulling members off the fight as often as possible, peeling away these layers from this team fight, away from Revival. The less of them they've got, the less they have to work through in the later stages of the game. They put a bunch of focus into the side of Concept as this game is continued. It feels like that's their avenue that they've been able to pull gold from as consistently as possible to make sure competition and Short Hop and everybody else isn't falling too dramatically behind. I will say, I'm just going to give one quick update on gold and CS and such. Do notice right now how good Sudsy's doing alongside Short Hop. Both of them farmed up to 260 at this point. Oh goodness, competition.
Yeah, competition not going to get snared though, so that's going to be fantastic. The equalizer is going to be put over onto the side there as well, so not going to be able to catch competition out. But yeah, to your point, I mean, you talked about the farm. Look at the gold differences coming out here between these members. A lot of gold, completely even, but you can see exactly where the advantage has been accrued in this jungle matchup.
And again, as this game gets even further on, these ultimates that have been looking good from Sudsy and from the likes of Pulp are just going to get better. And Sudsy specifically has hit some mean shockwaves. Now that the Rabadons is done with some penetration, with the Ludens that's stacking up that additional penetration from that Mythic passive, all of a sudden these ultimates that have been doing 200, 300, 400 damage, quarter of the health bar of some of these carries are going to start one-shotting. And now all of a sudden Equalizer doesn't need to be layered. It can be used to funnel people into Sudsy instead of the other way around, which is even more terrifying, that either way you're doomed if you're hit by either one of these ultimates. This is where a Cloud Soul would be ridiculously powerful to deal with right now. That is not what, this is the one game where I'm really would have wished for a Cloud Soul if we could have seen that.
Bo's ult's already up again, man. Look at this. You're talking about terrifying things. I'm I'm living in a world where Rumble ult is on a 30-second cooldown. I am terrified.
It's pretty horrible. But that's where we live. That's the realm that we're in right now. You have to be careful. You can now fish with this ultimate, and Pulp, being as fed as they are right now, is ridiculous with this. Has been amazing on this Rumble all game. That equalizer again on his shot.
Yet again, just lays it out as an effective method of Pope for them. The curtain call to follow it up, and you see Pulp. His equalizer's already almost halfway on cooldown. This is disgusting. It's less than 30 seconds here.
Okay, we're good. Like I said, these are the moments where when Equalizer right now, when it comes to how quick it's coming off cooldown, I'm also looking at Urgot Ultimate, which is just an execute, and that's coming off cooldown too. And fishing with these is all of a sudden really, really good, because when you pair them with Jhin Ultimate and you get these slows and this execution damage, and that means that if somebody gets hit with a combination of an Equalizer, an Urgot Ultimate, and Jhin Ultimate shots, They're dead. They just die. Actually, my apologies, Competition might be in some danger right now. Actually, in a really bad position.
Yeah, he's going to rewind time. He's going to be able to dodge out on a bit of damage. Scooped is trying to jump forward, but Competition had to blow everything to escape that. AOE Random, they're in a position that they're looking to possibly look to scrap for this. A lot of vital ultimates being taken off the board. It's going to be Pockets getting caught out by Concept over here on the side as Pockets is going to go down very quick and easy. Chim is going to be able to gnar out. Is going to be in that Mega Gnar mode. We got a TP coming in from Competition. This is a 4v5 at this current moment in time. The Ocean Drake is resetting slightly here as the skirmish continues to go on. AOE Random want to pull the trigger right here, right now, but it is not their time. Chim is going to find itself crisped up. Is this going to be a lot of damage being put in? Competition gets bursted out of existence here. The fight continues to go on for Josie. He goes golden, but he's not going to be able to find any Drake for himself. It's going to be a kill traded match. Short Hop going to be able to find one, but the damage is there. Short Hop all alone. A double kill and an ace going over to Revival.
I really thought there was an opening right there from the side of AOE Randoms where maybe the Equalizer was down, the ultimate from Urgot was down, everything was down except for the Shockwave, and the Shockwave accomplished nothing, but they cannot get Short Hop forward in these fights. Again, when you have no protection, when you have no peel, you can't walk up that far. You have such a difficulty trying to access damage when Rumble can throw these harpoons at you, throw this Flame Spitter, throw everybody these abilities, and that's just one champion, let alone everyone else. Focus is just trying to prevent them and to try to stall them a little bit longer to get somebody up, but really, this is the end of game one. Revival played out the team fights long enough, were able to get this massive gold advantage, capitalized on their early game, and they end up clutching game one of the semifinals.
Bro, I gotta talk real quick about this. Pulp just put, like, with this game alone, as I already said, all right, now you guys can go ahead and start talking about me as a possible MVP candidate. Go ahead, you can have these conversations amongst yourself. Pulp was a freaking monster inside that game. Right. The gold lead that entire game, I bet you, I will bet so much on the fact that that gold lead was just continuously attributed by Pulp. While the rest of his teammates went even, we saw the Rumble be performed to a masterclass standard there. Really doing a fantastic job and really educating everybody on this is what Rumble looks like. This is why Rumble is picked. This is why Rumble is a contested champion. And this is why when we're on blue side, you better watch out because this Rumble first pick is something that you have to fear.
Important aspect of that again is that when you draft Rumble with strong lanes, not only do you have ganking places, but you also have the freedom to then access river and then go into more of a power farming style, where it was a relatively slow early game from the likes of the Rumble, where it was just a couple of camp advantage that you had over the Morgana, but Morgana had to spend so much time getting these lanes out of these very adverse situations that they had drafted themselves into, that by the mid game you had this 2,000, 3,000 gold advantage even with control of these dragons. And when you have superior team fighting, it took very high levels of execution from AOE Randoms to try to break these fights apart, which they did have a couple of times. I do not want to take that away from AOE Randoms. They played immaculately in a handful of fights, but eventually that gold lead got out of hand. The biggest thing was that Rumble was pulling a bunch of those mid-game kills and snowballed way too fast. So if you got tagged by one Equalizer, all of a sudden your fight is completely shot and that game is completely over. I don't believe Rumble should be getting through anymore, at least after that one, especially because now both teams will have all of their bans as well, but we'll have to see, because I'm sure that Pulp would be more than happy to take that one again if possible.
We'll have to see if that will be the case. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be taking ourselves a short break. When we come back, we're going to go to our so very dearly missed analyst desk as they get ready to get us ready to go into game number 2 and break down all of the action that happened inside of game number 1. So make sure you guys stay tuned and don't touch that browser.
And welcome to the desk, everybody. Sorry about all the mix-up, a little bit of back and forth going on, but we decided, yo, it's semifinals. Why don't we surprise y'all? Because I know I was surprised. Breakdown, were you surprised?
I was really surprised, Robbie. I'm really glad you asked.
Yeah, I know. I was shocked, even in awe. Perhaps always I would just use to describe myself, but one more thing that also uses me in awe is, we're always here, but we do of course have a fantastic guest yet again after another week. We do have OPT, a 7 fan himself, bro, staple in the amateur scene for years upon years. Welcome to the desk. So, although we don't have time to gush about how great you are, let's talk a little bit about
So
that
great.
game. Of course, let's talk a little bit about that game. Pete, starting off with you, man.
So I think a lot of things happened that game. I'm gonna start off by saying that. And the thing I kind of want to talk about is the draft. So going on red side first here for the side of AOE, they saved their counter pick mid for Comp 9 into a player like Sudsy into a team like Revival makes a lot of sense. I love that. Echo into Oriana. I love that even more. Here's where it becomes a problem. We see Comp 9 not able to do a whole lot with this counter matchup he got for himself here. Found some roams, was able to have some kind of effect on the rest of the map, but ultimately didn't find the best roam timers because I found out noticing around 10, 12 minutes into the game, he's down to 30 CS, and it's these little early game, I guess, missteps here from AOE that even though we see Revival mess up as well, it ended up becoming an unrecoverable game state for the side of AOE, especially with how their composition works, how they want to dive in. Revival's perfectly fine with that. When you have someone like Urgot who puts out so much DPS, when you have a champion like Rumble with an insanely low cooldown on that equalizer, it's just so good for AOE.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the composition around competition was a little bit they were disrespecting some of the windows that they had right there. We just saw the clip from Josie invading blue side, trying to steal the blue right there. There was so much back and forth, not even just between like what Ravishing was saying earlier, that you could never find a time frame for competition to get in the side lanes to where he can set up and be this 4-1 split push, because no one on the side of Revival could really answer him the later this game went. But there was just so much back and forth that ended up happening where people were getting picked off left and right. People were trading tempo and being tempo goblins on the field of justice right there. So it was really tough for competition to have like any effect afterward. But concept in that early game was absolutely massive.
And I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because that's the next point I wanted to transition to. See, the thing with Concept that was really impressive this game was just his awareness of the map state. Very smart how he played the early stages of the game. You set up for the standard 3-wave crash on wave 3 on the top side. You already immediately forced him to TP out. That's already unfavorable for the side of AoE. But beyond that, it gets even more impressive because now he's aware of the jungle pathing of Josie and knowing, okay, around this time, I'm getting shoved in right now. There could be a lane gank in the next minute or so. He wards the brush nearest to the tower, and if you were watching, he avoided it because he didn't step out of position. He saw Josie show up and he didn't get that playoff. Ends up wasting his time. He knows he is okay to not be in lane. He sits just by the blue buff, expecting again the invade from Josie. Every time Josie tried to invade, tried to make a play happen in the first couple minutes of the game, he actually got hard shut down by Concept. And I think that's a big part of why AoE couldn't really get their foot on the gas rather.
Yeah, for sure.
You saw how the consistent infighting continued throughout the game, which is why we do have some stats on the other end for Pulp going into it, right? Although you played that Rumble, right? This man absolutely popped off, bro. 21 kills, only one death that he had across the board, or maybe two, if I'm counting correctly. 739 damage per minute, 75% kill pressure throughout that 35-minute game. Absolutely disgusting. And can I just say a message to Riot Games, because I know you guys are watching, bro. Tell me why Rumble alt is on a 30-second cooldown. Why can't he just put that thing down like anytime he wants and then it's up in time? It can come up sometimes in the middle of a fight if the cooldown is low enough, bro. That is disgusting. So I ask you and plead you to get right, Games. Increases cooldown. Rumble's good right now. Now, doing this will make him bad. Don't think about like nerfing Ultimate Hunter or something because that would affect everybody. Please make a smart choice. Affect only a single champion and a single ability. Please stop just punching the game in the face and hoping things end up happening.
PSA.
I don't know, man. I saw Rumble at MSI and they didn't look as good as Pulp. So maybe Pulp's just like the best Rumble world right now. But
You know what?
yeah.
That's got to be it.
yeah, that's got
You're
yeah.
not. You're not. You know what, Sean? You raise a very real and fair possibility. I'm gonna make sure to at Riot Freak after this just to let him know that, hey guys, like the Rumble jungle you've been missing out is right here. It's not an MSI. He's on Upsurge. As with that being said, we're gonna head it out over to the casters of Bo5 and Travis. Today's game number 2 is Bo5.
Shoutouts to the desk as they brought us into game number 2 here. We are back. We're ready to kick off the action. My name is Travis. I am joined here by the ever so much so a daredevil, I would say, co-caster Rebel Thoughts. I saw that tweet that you made. I'm not letting you live that down. You're going to have green hair soon, Rebel. It's coming.
It's going to happen, yes, 100%. I'm really hoping it does. I honestly kind of just do want to support them with that kind of a thing, but that's contingent on whether they can clutch in the gulag during that absolute slosh of a bracket in the Rumble phase. We're not going to talk about Pentanet right now because we have our own series and our own semifinals to catch up with. And thankfully, also thank you to our desk who finally joined us, and they were wonderful. Ravish beat down the most ravishing man on the internet, and Sean, of course, the second most ravishing man on the internet. All of them are just fantastic people.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. But we're going into game number 2. Like you said, we have a series on our hands here. And honestly, I am not convinced that was just like, all right, this is just going to be, Revival just running away with series. The AOE showed a lot of great things inside of that. And it's a lot of things that we've seen from them throughout the regular season. Punishing some over-aggressiveness, making sure to punish mistakes. But we did see, what happens when, everything goes awry. What happens when everything doesn't work out in their favor. So I'm curious to see what does AOE random bet on? Because I think betting on the opposing side to make a mistake isn't a great way to play League of Legends.
Revival have very recently, with the addition of Pulp instead of Cyber within the confines of this, have recaptured the form that kind of caught everybody's attention at the beginning of Proving Grounds to the previous split. And I think that's wonderful. That's an incredible thing that Revival's been able to bring back. So AOE Randoms, they're an amazing team. They went undefeated until this previous game, which was their first loss of the entire season, handed them on a silver platter by a team that is expected to go for a very long distance. They were one of our favorites in the previous split to win, and now we're getting a chance to see Randoms actually running headfirst into their first true test within the confines of this tournament. I'm excited to see where it takes them and how they adapt to this, because this is kind of a first for them. Revival took 5 losses over the course of the split. They adapted their roster over a number of times with different bot lanes, different junglers, different top laners, and they were finally able to settle into an amazing place. AOE Randoms, on the other hand, now they're getting their opportunity. We're sticking with what we've got. Revival, however, they have an additional ban still to work with. They're the ones who can make a very significant difference in this first banning phase by taking away something powerful. They wanted to, they could just remove the Morgana altogether, and all of a sudden you've just got this Rumble for free.
Yeah, I feel like you have to pay a lot of respect, and the momentum is definitely in favor of Revival. And you'll see Revival saying, Jinx, Lulu, still off the table. Pocket, not getting Lulu. Sure up, you're not getting Jinx. I think this makes a lot of sense to come out from the side of Revival. And they get, like you said, a free ban. They can ban away Morgana here and just be like, yeah, sure. What else you got? What, you have anything else? And even then, they can leave the Morgana up, right? Like, the Morgana didn't accomplish really anything inside the early game. Yeah, you saw Josie have some great objective control on the dragons, but what good did that do them at the end of the day here? As you can see, AOE Random sticking with the same formula so far. Diana, Nocturne taken off the table.
these are the same two bans we saw in the previous game for Revival, so now it's a question of where do they go to? If they ban out Morgana, you could easily trade Rumble away, and then Thresh is here. If you ban out something like Thresh, they're going to have to ban out one of the two junglers, but instead they just do neither. They end up taking one back, and then you have to worry about something else. Instead, Revival takes away the Alistar, which intends potentially that Plux is going to go for the likes of this Rel pick, which is interesting because this is something, you know, I remember when Rel was super prevalent and everyone was playing it, Plux was picking it up and starting to look good on it towards the end of its lifespan, and then it's kind of slowed down since then, but it's still around as a very good pick, and especially because Alistar is now banned away, it's one of the better counter picks into it. Now if you pick Morgana alongside it, now Black Shield is taken away, and you've got immediate engage with the Rel that can no longer be stopped, as well as having the potential of anything else that would come out, and you saw how powerful the team fight can be from Revival. Those are two amazing pieces to snag immediately.
Yeah, Rumble's taken off the table, right? You can actually just lock yourself in Morgana if you so choose, but the Varus is actually going to be the option. They say short hop. What's your champion pool look like? We take away the Jinx. We're taking away Varus. What do you got in the tank, buddy? As they're looking to question that.
Interesting. I'm curious if that means that Pulp is capable of playing something super aggressive. I know this patch there were a lot of jungle changes. It's something that a lot of people are considering at the moment is whether or not aggressive junglers are coming through. Another thought process here that actually went through my mind was I wonder if they're trying to bait out AOE randoms into taking Rel as an aggressive pick into the immobile version of this ADC that they had in the previous game so that they can themselves take the Thresh and try to deny that engage. Instead, AOE randoms does not play their games. They say, we're taking the Thresh, we're going to put that onto Pocus, who's really good on it. We'll find an ADC to work with it. Aphelios is available, who had some decent buffs that went into some pretty crazy territory. And now, not the Morgana, instead the super high win rate Udyr. It feels like when all the AP junglers got risen to high priority and started getting banned away, everyone forgot this was the #1 champion for the first first 6 patches of the split, and everybody seemed to just lose that entire fact, and it's been dominating every other jungler. It had 70% win rate at MSI because of how amazing this champion is. This is ridiculous, and this is a steal here for AOE randoms.
I love that statistic too because it just makes it's one of those things where it's just like they've been trying to throw him down, but they haven't been able to knock him down to the same level they were able to knock down Hecarim. Now on the other side, Revival, they pick up an answer for themselves. They grab Karma, which I personally like. You do not want a Karma to be paired together with anything. They want to make sure that they're able to secure this, and this is a nice flex pick. They honestly Revival have a lot of flexibility inside of the positions that they have here as that double Karma. What?
Nah, double Karma would go so dummy inside of a competition.
What does it mean?
We got a Kindred!
There we go.
Cool.
We got Kindred.
Alright, really cool. Couple of things. First off, Pulp, pretty good Kindred player. Also, if anyone is going to adapt the C9 strategy of putting the Kindred inside of the mid lane, it's going to be Sudsy pretty much immediately, as that was something that got played very recently. It didn't have success, so that means that it's instantly bad. But really important that is going to be a snag that's going to come here as a potential flex. Unlikely, because Pulp is the really good Kindred player to play into the likes of this Udyr, which doesn't seem like a particularly good matchup to me, which is why it's interesting that Revival snagged that one. And I love Samira. I think Samira's been way underrated by a number of ADCs, and if played properly, it can go very, very hard inside of team fights and in the laning phase, especially when paired with something aggressive like the Thresh.
I mean, this is like throwing a grenade into a team fight, right? Like, you throw this in there and it explodes, and Samira is standing tall in the center of it. It is really something disgusting to see whenever you get to see Samira get the pop off. And Short Hop, if Short Hop's able to do this is a champion that has quite a bit of urgency, has a lot of bit of playmaking that they are able to do, and a lot of damage that they're going to be able to put out once they go in. Because right now, I got to talk about this. AOE randoms, they have a composition that looks like they're looking to move forward right now, man. You got a Samira, you got an Udyr, you got a Thresh. There's not a lot of retreating, and then you also have a Lantern as an extra net of security to allow one free reposition inside of a fight. So I'm actually very, very excited to see what AOE randoms has cooking up here as we see them taking away a lot of these team fight tools from Revival.
Got banned, so that is still available. Other things that I am really curious. I feel like Sudsy would also be somebody that not necessarily the Kindred, but definitely could pick up Lee Sin within the confines of the game. And Lee Sin, especially this patch, again, if you're playing some super aggressive, super high tempo junglers trying to gank very early, especially with the camp respawn timers being a bit slower. It means the clear speed isn't as impactful onto Lee Sin, doesn't need the Tiamat anymore in order to keep up with like big time clear speed like you would onto likes of Udyr or anything else. It means that this is a decent flex pick with the Kindred if Sudsy does play that as well, and he seems like the type of player with the skill capable of managing that champion within the confines of this game. Now it's a question of, okay, Chim has had blue side pick or had counter or blind pick in the previous game. Will you go back to that again, or will this time you instead go to competition's blind pick, going to something easy to play? Did they grab Lee Sin instead?
They do. They say we'll take it blind here, and Lee Sin is going to be the champion they so choose to pilot here. And this is a nice little flexibility too, right? You can go between competition and Chim, and I personally like it in both lanes, so you can kind of go into the matchup that whichever one you favor the most. The question is, do you just take the Urgot here again, right? Concept played it and was very good in the early game. I don't see why you wouldn't.
Yes. Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, look at this comp from the side of AOE Randoms. Who is your ranged damage right now? You've got Udyr and Lee Sin, who are literally melee champions, and then Samira is the closest thing you've got to a real ranged damage source, but she's going to go in on top of you too. Like you said, she's the whirling ball of death, the holy hand grenade to come into these compositions. All it takes is a little bit of CC, or even the Kindred ultimate, and all of a sudden, you've got this like very, very strange dynamic where the only real damage source that's coming out from AOE Randoms gets shut down by both Kindred and from close range by the likes of the Urgot. I even love the addition of the Nautilus in here because it's more CC. It allows for a bunch of execution potential to come out from the side of Revival. Now, that does mean I think that we're going to end up seeing Urgot top, Kindred in the jungle, and of course Karma in the mid lane, which isn't necessarily, again, the flexibility of these champions was in question. But I like, again, what Revival has done, shutting out this possibility of short hop popping off in fights.
Feels really well with this Lee Sin too, man. Like, think about it. Lee Sin in the mid lane. You jump onto Karma. If you do not one-shot her, Karma survives every single time. But Seraphine is going to be our last round pick. So it looks like we're going to have the Enchanter matchup here inside of this mid lane. And oh, it's going to be a very exciting game to be able to watch here already. You talking about Enchanters in the mid lane, we're kind of like, eh. Oh, I think, I know I'm of the opinion, I think Enchanters are actually pretty significantly stronger at the current moment in time. It's just more of a solo queue versus competitive thing. But I'm very, very curious now of how Chim is planning on piloting this Lee Sin. Like, you didn't ban Urgot. You had to know that this was coming up your way. And I'm gonna be honest, man. As somebody who plays Lee Sin in solo lanes as well, I look at Urgot, I'm like, man, I don't like this. I Q in and he just throws me over my shoulder. I'm an unwilling damsel in distress, man. I don't like this.
Love with Random's composition pretty much in general. I feel like, again, like topside, you're not necessarily winning 100%. Like, I guess if you get like an early bit of gold or an early burst of damage, maybe there's some legitimate threat that you can like burst out an Urgot as Lee Sin, but I don't really see that coming through. It's not easy to harass him like other melee champions because, of course, like he's ranged and he has the AoE on the shotgun knees, things like that, the ultimate that could potentially ruin the mobility that Lee Sin's got to dodge. You do have Seraphine, which is a cool tool. She's been nerfed, and Karma does some similar things, so you have that essentially traded on both sides. But then it's like a scooped and a Kindred angle up against an Udyr and a Samira, so you've got ranged advantage plus the Kindred ultimate to throw on top. It's just so difficult for me to see how randoms are working in this composition unless Chim is just constantly getting amazing ultimates and competition is just constantly getting amazing ultimates. Those are big tools that can make massive differences, especially into Kindred ultimate. When you have that circle, you've got like fish that are lined up in a barrel. It's my favorite analogy. I use it all the time when we see Kindred ultimates. But if you don't land those perfectly, these fights are very difficult to manage on their side if they're not just like vastly ahead in gold. So randoms have drafted themselves high execution again into Revival's composition, which is really good at team fighting.
Love hearing you talk, Rebel, because that's exactly all the points I would love to make here, man. Like, this is a competition from AOE Randoms. Like, this is like we talk a lot about like skill ceiling plus the skill floor. The floor is high, right? Like, you're going to need a ladder to be able to get onto this floor here, and that's just the bottom level of it. It takes a lot of execution for AOE Randoms to be able to pull this off, and we did see them be in a situation where they were not the proactive team. This cannot happen going into game number 2 with this style of competition. It feels like you look at AOE Randoms, and this is literally them saying, all right, you know, we see our faults, we're going to double up and we're going to be the team to be a lot more proactive. And that's big because you look at Revival, this is a team that if they get to be proactive, they get to dictate the pace of the map. What does Kindred love more than to be able to be proactive, right? What does this team love more than to be just this proactive, dominant force with this Varus pick potential, with the karma enchanting everybody and moving everybody around? And then we saw the Urgot. We can talk about it. It was the mid-game dungeon boss in the last game, but Concept showed us that he has the makings of possibly being a raid boss on this champion.
100%, especially in that early game when you have some of the early game, especially with, like in a just blind, like in a vacuum solo lane, was doing immaculately into champ, was doing perfectly fine. It was when they started putting extra resources that all of a sudden there started to be the struggle from Concept where he was getting picked out. And even towards the end of the game, he still had a bounty because he was still doing great things. To me, right now, the only way AOE randoms finds a way back into this game, or at least finds a way into this game to start with, is to shut out Pulp on this Kindred. And the best way to do that, I think DMAT have to be in the inventory of Samira or Seraphine, and you have to build AP to start with. You cannot go Moonstone. You can't go support Samira. It's just not going to work. You have to go AP for more damage, but exclusively it's for the wave clear to try to push in Karma so that you can support your jungler, because Udyr can just bully out Kindred. Kindred's low health in the earlier stages of the game compared to the Udyr, really good at dueling. When you pair that with a long-range supportive style with some good damage and some AoE inside of skirmishes, there's legitimate damage to be done inside of the river. So if Seraphine's got access to it, all of a sudden Udyr becomes scary. You can shut out marks. You can prevent Kindred from affecting the map. And maybe that's where you can start striking if you're on the side of AoE randoms.
But you know what I'm talking about? Scary, man. I think you got to talk about the image that Pulpit's left in everybody's mind, beating everybody into a pulp wherever they may be. And they're piloting Kindred this time around. And yes, like you said, Udyr has the potential to be able to bully out and do all this thing and be the bullier, if you would. That should be a skin there. They're just a bully Udyr. He just rolls around taking everybody's lunch money with the bear slaps. But it could be a very, very interesting dynamic here. Is Pulp's able to show yet that same level of just ability to control the map, control these fights, and be the person that is must watch on the side of Revival.
Love to see that come through from Pulp, because again, this is a pick that's really good for them. They are very good at the Kindred pick, and it's been something it's been a bit tumultuous, but it's been kind of a counter pick into AP junglers specifically. Haven't seen it too much into Udyr specifically, so this is something that Pulp just feels comfortable with playing, especially in this situation where like Udyr was coming out. I had to have thought, like, it definitely, if Morgana came out, I was perfectly fine with this. If this is like Morgana swapped for Udyr, this makes a ton of sense to me. But into this matchup alone, this is where a lot of volatility comes in. This is where maybe Pulp can get bullied down, like you said, the bull deer, where he just gets this bully skin, he gets to take lunch money, steal lunch boxes, things like that. And that's where you don't want to be if you're the Kindred inside of this game, which is why it's necessary also to try to control these waves, which is why Sudsy, I think, also can go for some very high AP. I love that ward right there from Sudsy. Had to jump the wave, doesn't take too much harassment from competition for it, does tag that little Q, but it's 100% worth it, because now you will catch Udyr on the way back down the map doing this full clear, potentially give Pulp the opportunity to cross map into wherever the Scuttle Crab is going to go. So what I want to see right now, I got to see Plux play up in this lane, or they have to let this wave bounce really quickly. They have to completely stop moving so that they can make sure they could be in the river or even in lave state so they can support the jungle play if Pulp wants to go for that.
Big note to take note of here. Chim doesn't have 0 CS right now.
That's great. Improved.
You love to see it here.
It wasn't his fault. Like, Udyr,
yeah,
like,
it wasn't.
Gnar is, like, really difficult to play into the
Yes.
Urgot. Like I said, if you take 1E, you, like, die at level 1. It's near impossible to get away unless you burn Flash, but that's not his fault. Notice also, I love that Sudsy is burning this wave clear as fast as possible to be able to respond to Scuttle Crab. I love that Revival is playing with this speed right now, and when this wave bounces, they have to make it bounce. So I want to see a bunch of wave clear. I want to see every stack of this relic gone from the side of Plux, because these have to be gone immediately. They're pushing them under tower with a little bit of stalling. I want to see it come back out so they can support the bottom side Scuttle Crab. And we'll have to see if the RNG is on the side of Pulp for this top side Scuttle instead.
Well, he is looking for more than just the topside Scuttle here. He's looking at a possible game plan with Jim. Isn't his target at the current moment in time, but he's hungry for this kill here as Chim is going to be in an interesting spot here. Does have the ability to safeguard to safety, and big reason why this champion has seen a lot more priority here. As Udyr just takes bot scuttle, and Pulp coming back in is going to be able to get the aggression onto Jim. Flashes, good ward hop away. Will be able to survive that.
Yeah, that to me felt like a really uninspired play from Revival. Like, we have this setup where you get to see the Raptor take coming in from Jossie, so you have a timer on the Udyr. Pulp is still on top side despite, like, everything got burnt, the flash got burnt, which is nice between the two. Jossie's already back on top side, so you're down a number of camps. You have to take this Scuttle Crab. Jossie's got so much tempo, and already the camp reset timers over top of Pulp. And yes, those timers did get lowered, so there was a bit of downtime here from Jossie, but there's still 2 camps that have yet to be taken, or I think at least 1 camp that has yet to be taken by Pulp that just will exist, that has to be taken before the reset comes through. Jossie could be on bot side by the time that Pulp is redeployed onto the map, which means that there's some danger, especially if this wave crashes and then bounces back, which it looks like is going to be set up, that a dragon's going to come out here, especially if competition off the back of this TP for tier can use this mana advantage to clear this wave. That's exactly what competition's doing right now.
And Pocus running into this mid lane, you love to see it, as that could be some nice action to come through. Tether will be able to be taken away as Pocket shows themselves to get it. But I am curious if this is going to be a trend, right? Is this Revival strategy? Do they just continue to have Pulp going to this top side, playing very top side heavy now in the second game here, and it be a strategy they look at to be very successful? Here we go. Josie gets the reposition. Beautiful flay is going to be able to force Sudsy to flash there. Pulp is in a troublesome situation, does find themselves getting out of it though, as the Ignite was burned on top of them, and Pocus taking a good chunk of damage in return.
Has been the case. Pocus will have to leave, which is one thing, but push on bottom side was owned by Short Hop, as it looked like Scooped needed to take a back somewhere in there to catch this wave, and this is the dragon setup I was waiting on. I thought it'd be a little bit safer, they wouldn't necessarily have to force, but I think Pocus had a really good angle in that mid lane looking for that flash play. Good on Sudsy to be able to dodge that, because it would have been an instant execution even with flash if that lands whatsoever, as the CC would have come through immediately from Jossie, and there would have been an E on top of it from the slow, and things would have gone downhill very, very quickly. So props to Sudsy dodging out on that. I really thought they could have dragon right there. I really did, but they decide not to because Pocus isn't on the map. And all this is going to do is let Revival's wave bounce back, start to stack in the opposite direction against Short Hop, and maybe competition could come in from Pulp as he's had time to clear a couple of camps. And Jossie's not committing to the dragon quite yet either, as Pulp actually moving through bottom lane. I want to see them just push this and walk into river, because Karma's also got mid push right now.
Yeah, they could look for it, man. I mean, Pulp has to bat, though. Pulp hasn't backed yet. This is Pulp's first recall of the game, so Pulp needs to back here. Go ahead and get the reset. And this is just, you already talked about it. This is the foreshadowing of what the early game of this Udyr has been able to bring out by having this smart pathing and really playing very smart here, playing throughout the clears. Is already level 6, is already ahead in items, and is ahead in tempo here. And that's not what you want to be on this Kindred here. That's a very major point that is really actually hurting this momentum that Revival could be looking to try and build themselves up here. As you can see, this Josie's going to be able to secure the scuttle now.
They have taken down the spawn timers for camps, and Josie's still sitting 2 CS behind number 1 on the team right now. This Udyr clears so ridiculously fast. And this is also with the dragon under the belt and also a gank under the belt. Like, there's been so much activity from Jossie so far already within this game. To have this kind of CS advantage is crazy to begin with. And this is, again, I think partially on Pulp committing way too heavily, trying to punish Chim on the top side, get concept rolling, which did not work out, and then ended up slowing down. And then, like you said, I think had the back come through at some point for Pulp, they would have been able to contest that bottom dragon with their pushing bot, with their pushing mid. But because Pulp never found that back, which was a fantastic catch by you, wanted to give you praise for that one. They weren't able to. Chim now in some really dire straits. Ultimate's available for Urgot. I'm curious when this is going to get used.
Right there. He's going to pull him in and grab him. That's first blood. Secured easy as that. And finally, a gank does pull off on Pulp, for Pulp here, but I'm just so curious about so many of these different things, and now we're going to see them. It's going to be the charm, the bear slap to come out. Sudsy is not long for the world, and competition is going to find a heaping amount of damage, and now it's going to be Josie just laying out the damage here, and that's another kill for this Udyr. While over into the bot side, it's just going to be Short Hop popping off inside of this team fight, looking to lay out more damage onto Scoop. Those stacks are definitely there, is looking to lay out a lot of damage, just trying to fight him inside the minion wave, but it's not going to be enough. Scoop finds that kill onto the Samira as that bot lane comes out on top.
Trades back and forth pretty much across the map. Nice catch in the top river, being able to pull down a couple of members right there as it was Sudsy had stepped into the river to prevent competition from roaming up and supporting Udyr in the play, and all it did was allow for the Udyr to step into the river and take this 2-on-2, which again, super powerful for this combination of champions to snag this Rift Herald. This is the play onto Chim that ended up watching. And so you look, mid lane has been reset. It's crashing in the middle. You see mid laners will clash right there. Ultimate's down from concept. He has to catch the remainder of these minions. He's probably not moving very far. So Pulp just walks into river where all of a sudden, like, Sudsy's taking this play into competition. Josie was going up to cover, and the encore lands onto this. Stun comes down, and that's just chain CC for Sudsy, who lands one additional Q, and it leads to this topside fight that ends up coming through. A kill went down somewhere. Okay.
He did miss out on that, but hey, we're back into the action here and seeing what exactly is coming through here. Sudsy is looking to try and just poke him out, which is just good on the Karma's behalf. Josie looking to try and give chase here. Is going to be able to pop the smite down onto him. It's going to be Bolt free hitting onto this Udyr as Josie's just laying out a heaping amount of damage. Short Hop going to be able to find that kill. Josie looking to continue chasing down Pulp here. Pulp taking a heaping amount of damage, just trying to get that bear slap onto it, get Short Hop into the middle of this fight here. Pulp taking a harder amount of damage, and Josie finding yet another kill. They just continue to run them down.
Why is the ult not being pressed? There's 4 members right there. I know you're in really dire straits, but you're under your own tower, and you've got a couple of people right in front of you that you could potentially, drain. At worst case scenario, Sudsy's able to set up some sort of massive Q, throw a couple of auto attacks and get that ultimate reset. You get 2-3 kills off the back of it if they challenge further under the tower, or at minimum, Sudsy just throws an Empower Shield on you. You get to run out the back, but Pulp, twice in a row now, caught out in a situation where just completely gives up on that scenario, and instead doesn't use the ultimate. This isn't the look for a Kindred main or anybody that plays Kindred really consistently. Those feels really, really conservative with that ultimate, expecting to have a higher value later, but you're not getting that value later if there's never a fight you're going to be able to use it. Pop it under mid tower. There is not a better situation that you can get out of than the one that was just set up right there.
Yeah, and honestly, another thing to just take note of too is just the fact that he still has Udyr mark, and yet again is up here top lane. Yet again, I don't believe this Kindred's gotten a single stack just yet here. Chim looking to try and jump onto somebody here. Concept taking a hard amount of damage. Chim looking to continue in hot pursuit. It's going to be the encore hitting, going to be able to connect. Kindred's going to be able to put out that Concept not going to be able to connect onto anybody of his own. It's going to be a lot of damage being put on as Udyr's going to be trying to go deep into the bat side. It's going to be Kindred trying to chase this down. It's going to be able to find Chim, going to be able to find that kill for themselves here as the Udyr is left in the 1v2 scenario. Is it going to be enough? Is this finally going to be the stat for Pope? It will be, as it's a triple kill for him.
Super close fight right there from Revival, but thankfully all of the support necessary from Sudsy comes through. The ultimate finally dropped by Pulp is going to get them out of that situation scot-free. Got to put a bunch of extra kind of big props over to the side of Concept and Pulp, who did a ton of damage. This was great cover, and I actually really like the NDH to come through. The encore usage with the Q coming out from Lee Sin gives such a good cut. The ultimate perfect from the Kindred to begin with. That ultimate missing was humongous from Concept, but the damage that he puts onto competition and Chim ends up buying this. There was a lot of time that took for Pulp to bring this down. I was really worried it wasn't going to work, but ends up getting the heal, finding a couple of kills. Jossie tries to get this one, is super close to clutching, but even if you get the trade kill onto Pulp, you're still going to go down, and it's going to be a positive fight for Revival. Like you said, first stack, but now 3 kills also into the side of Pulp, who's able to also shut down the Udyr. Now Chim, another bad situation.
Pulp trying to see if he can catch him there. Not going to be able to secure that, but now it's going to be Dragon that's going to be grabbed here. Josie's looking to try and secure that as they see Kindred still over there in the top side. That is going to be Dragon as Herald is looking to beat down onto this bot lane tower. This is going to be some plates and could be a possible dive. We got our hands on here. Josie's looking, trying to get in position. Scooped, you're in a terrible spot here. Rift Herald's going to start this one on off. We're going to be able to lay a little bit of damage onto him. That's going to be a great hook to be able to connect onto competition. This is going to be a scattered fight coming out here as AOE Randoms is in the trouble troublesome situation. Short Hop trying to see what he'll be able to do, trying to keep it away. Concept's going to be able to find a kill onto Josie. It's going to be another bit of fight. They're trying to disengage this now, but it's going to be competition. Locked up Short Hop now in a troublesome spot himself. It's going to look to try and pop off in the midst of this fight, but it's not going to be enough as the damage comes through. Scoop finds another one, and that is going to be 3 kills and nothing sacrificed for the side of Revival.
I have criticized Scooped in the past for having some rough positioning that usually has to be bridged by picking something like Kai'Sa at the beginning of Revival's existence in Proving Grounds. That was something big. This fight, immaculate, top to bottom. Look at that. Dodged out E, dodged with a flash. Everybody's on top of him. All of a sudden, they can re-engage out from underneath of this tower. Chains of Corruption hits multiple people through this fight. Started with Pocus, ended up onto the Lee Sin, and ends up going nowhere else, but at least stalls out the remainder of the fight for the damage and the backbone to come through, and allows Concept to continue working front to back and, sweeping up. This is going to be huge. But again, this is a play aggressed on by AOE randoms. They're so low, like immediate engage in so low range. They have to go under that tower so far that the counter engage from Revival is huge to turn that fight around. Another existence of Revival being down 2 dragons, but being up now 3,500 gold at only the 15-minute mark. It's huge for this composition that, again, is looking for more of the 5-on-5 style.
Exactly that, man. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little sad. I saw Scoop had the Halo Blades. I thought this may have been the Luden's Echo Muramana Varus, and I saw Muramana first item, but no, it's got a lethality item, so it's just like, okay, you're gonna go to standard lethality, which makes sense. It works really, really well against this competition here. As it's just gonna be that interesting dynamic to come out here as you see Pulp. Now, after that triple kill has stabilized and just found the priority that they need here, it looks like this is a completely different person now that they've found that triple kill. I guess that will do it to you.
Yeah, that's a lot of gold to throw into somebody's pocket, a lot of confidence boost as well, and also allowed a lot of time to catch up and farm. That Pulp was just down like 20, 30 farm to the likes of that. Look at the Udyr losing a quarter of his health bar to that lethality Varus. I do want to make that point also. You mentioned the Luden's build. I will say with a Kindred and Urgot, you probably could get away with the like of the Ludens, and as our producer actually calls out, 3 stacks for the Kindred means that you're only 1 away from that pivotal stack. You're seeing the camp onto the Lee Sin. They're trying to make the play happen with Karma right now.
It's the mark, baby. They want to grab it, and they're looking to see if they can, but Pulp not able to. Chim is safeguarding himself to safety every single time, and now there's 3 members that are dedicated up here to this top side here, and this is just really good from AOE Random to try and just null and void any thing they want to find. Short Hop, they were just there, buddy. You cannot walk up to that bush like that. Pulp is on a rampage.
Of object permanence, it's a problem. I don't know what it is. You saw them walk into the brush, they're like, oh, I don't know where they went. The other big thing is like they also know that Urgot's on the opposite side of the map. They come up with 3 to cover on top side. They definitely didn't need that. They needed 1 to cover maximum, and Thresh honestly might have just been enough to come up here with a lantern and drop it to make sure they couldn't put Rift Herald down immediately, and instead they could have CC'd or just held or even just given the tower. And somebody could have responded, caught some of the waves bot side. Instead, you put 3 on top, 1 in mid, and 1 kind of hovering in between, which is the Thresh, and that gives away bottom tower. Only then for Short Hop to overstep on top side, end up giving the life away, and all of a sudden you can't fight because you can overload into mid or top lane, and all of a sudden there's even more of the map that gets opened up, so they have to abandon top tower anyway. So my question, randoms, what's going on right now? Like, where are you attacking on this map? You're trying to cover Lee Sin so that you don't give away the Kindred stack, but you leaned way too heavily into that one. The defense of that stack is not worth giving up 2 full towers and more gold to this composition, who's already got a better comp, like, after the drafting phase, and has this massive gold advantage.
Feels so weird too, because right, we're seeing Chim be very effective at playing weak side, right? He doesn't need this attention. He is doing just fine on his own in his own little island, just soaking up the pressure, make the plays elsewhere, but instead they're finding themselves magnetized to where all the action is, and it's not to their benefit. And now you see Revival have complete tempo advantage. They've got 5 members here in the mid lane, and what does AOE Randoms have? They have nothing here. They're losing towers in the mid lane. They still have Herald if they just so choose to drop it. And while this is all happening, you got Josie counter jungling, you got Seraphine split pushing, there is an Ocean Dragon up, and AOE Random said, alright, man, it's fine, we'll just let you guys have that.
the exchange of crashing one wave and maybe what will be a second wave potentially, but just top tower being taken here from the side of AOE randoms. First off, that's not worth it alone. First, mid tower is just more valuable than top outer tower. Like, that's just a fact. Then you also give up Dragon, and you're giving up more resources because Urgot's pushing on bottom side, and you have Rift Herald to drop in either bot lane or mid lane, depending on where they are. And like you said, this whole time Jossie's been counter jungling. No one's here to respond. You don't get Short Hop's health bar. He cannot fight anymore. There's nothing to be had here. All they have to do is bounce between mid and bot lane until something breaks, and all of a sudden Rift Herald gets dropped. You're losing an inner tower, all in exchange for this top tower that Seraphine just broke. Only just now broke.
Like, yeah, look at this. They're completely running house on how this fight needs to be played. Josie's trying to find a way to go in here. Death's not going to be able to connect onto anybody to play coming through. But the damage into the backside, Pulp just annihilating HP bars over here onto the side. Competition had the TP to get over here, but look at this. Half HP immediately done. Another minion wave is en route, and they're going to be able to grab this mid lane tower. You try to grab your red buff, but you lost all priority here, AOE.
And now you lose your red buff too because Jossie was busy counter jungling, wasn't able to set up some counter wards. That's another stack for Jossie. That actually tells us, or my sorry, for Pulp, who ends up getting his 5th stack of the game. So the range advantage is there and the upgrades. Mid inner, I don't think actually it did fall right there. They were waiting for that wave. It ended up collapsing before Short Hop could come back and respond to it. This is such a sloppy mid game from the side of AOE randoms. In the previous game, we saw them use some pick potential, things like what would be the Seraphine ultimate or like the Udyr going in on top of somebody. But they're so much harder to set up in this game, but you don't have that same kind of like Morgana binding or side lane pressure. You can't put that on anymore. You're just out of that entire game completely. So you're just waiting, hoping these dragons buy you enough time to get Samira and into Seraphine into a position where they can team fight, but I don't know that that comes because of how far ahead Revival is. If you take a fight around Baron or something, I think Revival just wipes this team and all of a sudden complete map control goes to them.
Honestly, I feel like, and this is going to be my point here, is Seraphine sitting alone in the side lane. I think the study and the scouting went to see that there was a Seraphine stand. They checked their Twitter account. They saw they were liking the Seraphine posts on Twitter back when they were doing the KDA stuff, and they're like, yo, we put the Seraphine in the side lane. Revival, they like themselves some Seraphine. There's some Sarah stands over there. But, I mean, it's just bait that's not working out for them. And you can see they're looking for catches onto Nautilus of all people right now because they're just looking to try and figure out a way to see some sort of momentum back at this point in time. But nothing is in AOE Random's way here. They have to figure out a way to kind of slow things out, stem the bleeding, and like you said, scale up. You do have an effective carry in Samira, but Short Hop has to position just right inside of these team fights and really make things work. And it's a tall order to ask when you're going against an Urgot, a Kindred, a Karma, a Nautilus. There's so many tools that when you go in are going to be there to make it to where they can counteract this Samira.
This is a weird place also to be if you're in the side lanes here for the side of AOE randoms, only because like Lee Sin is down 50. Oh, never mind. I think Jossie's able to get pulled up. Thankfully.
No,
nice.
Death Sentence, Death Charge, going to be able to connect. Beautiful Encore to be able to connect, but that's a beautiful ult coming out from Pulp. Pulp is going to be able to survive for this for a little bit longer. That's going to be the shutdown. Competition's going to be able to find that one as it happens over onto the sideline. Urgot got a solo kill onto the Lee Sin. And it is now all of a sudden a 1-for-1. The arrows raining through, and that Serpent's Fang putting absolute work against this competition here from Scoop.
They are. This is a tough position to be in. You lost so much health for just that one pick on your 4 members, and you lost one on the opposite side, so now Urgot just gets the free push. That's a tower down. Honestly, Urgot could just, maybe potentially turn into this team, try to get everybody else.
Nice. Oh my god, the fancy moves. Concept has his suede shoes on. Josie trying to lay in some damage, but it's just going to be the damage laid onto him. He doesn't have anything to handle them knees. And that is Concept finding yet another kill. And ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the new raid boss.
It's so painful to look at right now. 2 items completed, and now the 3rd component. That's going to be like the Gargoyle Stone Plate, which makes you near unkillable inside of some of these skirmishes. And it's a tough place to be. I was saying these side lanes between these two are so hard. Concepts in a 1v3 that turns into a 1v4, gets a backflip, and it was just off of a Nautilus hook and some extra damage that they find this pick on the opposite side of the map. And that was after he traded for bottom tower and the bottom kill and the bottom inhibitor tower, where Concept is just playing this side lane and no one can respond to him the same way that no one can really respond to Scooped unless you get on top of him, and that's not easy with this low range composition. They're here to contest, but this might just be a last-ditch effort here for the side of Randoms.
Yeah, they're trying to see what they can. They don't want to give up this Baron, but they're going to have to. Now it's going to be the re-engage coming out. Concept looking to lay in some damage. Just going to get Bear slapped, and it's going to have a lot of damage being put onto him. The Encore only going to be able to connect onto one member, but it's going to be a big catch there. 1 for 1 so far. The Udyr's been taking out Short Hop, taking a heaping amount of damage now as Pulp is looking to lead the way forward. Sudgy's going to be able to flash on forward, lay out a lot of damage as their own. That Short Hop popping off in the fight. That is a triple kill, a quadra almost there, but it's going to be secured by competition. AOE Randoms finally find their angle in.
You get to see, finally, it's just a massive overextension from Revival. You just pulled the Baron, you pulled the kill off the board, you ended up trading Scoop because of a fantastic Encore. If you just break that fight, you're done. This game ends up going into siege mode. You have your Varus, you have all these members, you're good. This was an amazing charm and hook by Pocus. Huge competition and Pocus play right there. They continue forward with like this Kindred and this Urgot, thinking, okay, we can continue. This damage is good. We have this advantage. This hook onto the likes of the Urgot means you slow down, but more importantly, like you said, yeah, Short Hop obviously gets to jump in, press this massive ultimate from Samira that just cleans up this team. You're not ready for the short range. You're not ready for the shield bow healing. All of a sudden, the carry on the side of AOE Randoms has some gold. You're not back in this game necessarily, but you've set yourself up for some success. Your team fighting is obviously there, and the third dragon of the game means you can force a 5-on-5 at any point here on the side of Randoms. Not to mention, Baron is off the board completely for Revival. They'll have to go for another one.
I also, another big thing to take note of is this does show one of the conditions that we were talking about here too. Short Hop's decision making is going to be absolutely key. Yep. When do you go in? What is the pivotal moment? And that is going to be a dire question that's going to have to get asked at the very beginning as Josie's looking to engage us on forward. Devson is going to be able to connect onto Nala's. Beautiful kick being led in by Chim as the Lancer Spike coming through. Scoop is still laying out the damage, but he's not long for the world. They find the kill there as Revival have to limp away from this fight.
It's been tough. The engage is starting to come in. They're starting to find these kind of engages with the likes of the Encore and everything else that can come through. And so Randoms are beginning to test the mettle of Revival. Revival had such good control of the game, but bleeding that much gold out, especially right now, you look at where the gold is for Randoms, and it's entirely isolated within 2 members, which is Competition, your AP, and then of course, Short Hop, which is your AD damage pretty much entirely. And those 2 are the members. Those are the ones that carry you through fights anyway, and that's who's got all this gold. I also want to make mention, Seraphine's not going for this massive healing build, but still has good amounts with the AP values, and Shield Bow on Samira is ridiculous. The only bit of anti-heal that exists right now is exclusively a Bramble Vest on the Nautilus, which means if Plux isn't positioned perfectly, it's near impossible to kill off this team, especially Short Hop, if that Conqueror and that Ultimate are running full steam with the Immortal Shield Bow.
Yeah, a lack of grievous wounds is actually very critical too. I mean, it's so much. And like you were talking about, Seraphine has this scaling build, right? We've seen this a couple times. We've seen it on champions like Orianna. A lot of control mages have been utilizing this build where Luden's Echo plus this Archangels, right? The Seraph's Embrace. It's so much AP, right? Like, it actually works insanely well, and this gives competition. This gives AOE Randoms a lot of wave clear. The problem is they still have to figure out a way to manage these waves for themselves, right? There's still a gold deficit for AOE Randoms. They still have this early game hole that they put themselves into. They're 26 minutes into the game here, and you're still seeing that there is a lot of questions. How do AOE Randoms find themselves to come back? And we're seeing how, but can they continuously pull it off? It looks like the answer to this might just be yes. They have to halt Josie, as that was terrifying for Scoot.
Okay, yeah, they're just going to be able to run into the river, hopefully get away from that situation. Just for points of reference, again, Randoms, their whole idea is exactly what you just saw. When they run directly at Scooped, they can try to force him into a bad situation. There's no one to peel again except for Karma to throw an E or maybe an ultimate that comes through from Kindred, but that's about it. And if it's not for one of those 2 peeling tools, which aren't even fantastic peeling tools in the first place, there's not much to be done for the most part here for the likes of Scooped or anybody else that's going to get caught out. They have to play almost a more sieging style, where they're set up in a position of the map, they can defend it, they can bunker in, start throwing throwing arrows, start throwing Qs from Sudsy, who's mostly AP, and then allow their bunker to be just defended by the likes of this, the Kindred ultimate, the Nautilus, and the Urgot shotgun knees, because if anybody gets too close, they get absolutely run down. I also want to make mention, not a ton of healing or anti-healing quite yet from this team, but when Putrefier's done one ultimate E from Sudsy during the course of a fight, it's going to mean a massive world of difference here inside of these little skirmishes and inside of these 5-on-5s, where every member that gets that shield is going to get some form of anti-heal up against this squad with so much of that innate healing inside of them.
Also, I gotta talk about it real quick. Prowler's Claw on the Varus, right? Not something you see every day on side of your marksman. Is a very interesting pickup to see as well, as you do see some people actually put some value on the Dustblade when you go into the lethality Varus, but he is putting that wanting to get that extra lethality from that Mythic passive, and really probably isn't even going to be using the active on that one too often here. But it's going to be an interesting situation as we're seeing just a little bit of a poke war happening here. A lot of skirmishing, a lot of damage as Concept looking to try and go forward. Bear Slap is going to be able to connect. Chim's over here onto the side, is looking for a way to engage onto this fight. And Kratos not going to be able to connect on this. It's going to be Chim completely separated from the rest of their team. But this is around the Dragon. This is sole point for AOE randoms.
Trying to deny this as fast as possible. Chim still backs that huge encore!
The encore! We want more! Scoop is going to find himself dropping down the very low HP. Chim's on top of him. It's going to be the Dragon that's going to be jumped onto. It's going to be taken away as that's going to be secured. Ocean Soul over to AOE random. Short Hop is popping off. He's laying out the damage. He's looking for more, but he's gonna have to stop at a triple kill. His Concept will end it off, but Competition is going to be able to stay alive after that fight.
4 for 3 in favor of the side of Revival, but the Ocean Soul back into the favor of course, AOE randoms who weren't able to snag that in the previous game. They're going to look for this Baron buff up against the Seraphine. That's the only person remaining. She's going to be able to throw damage, and you see how much... Yeah, it's insane with this Void Staff having been completed. That penetration is absolutely nuts. Pulp doesn't have the ultimate up quite yet. You have an okay amount of healing. I don't think Seraphine can steal this super easily. It's going to be like a 10% chance or something. That's might guaranteed locked at 900. Can he find the Q?
No, doesn't find it. Does have to just walk away from it, but an attempt was made, and you can definitely see Revival have to limp away from that. The Baron, I'm not sure if it was on all 5 members there, though. It looked like they got it onto all 5, but we'll have to double check on that. But you can see this fight bringing out again.
Oh, it's gorgeous right here. I love Scooped. Yet again, the positioning is so right bare bones at the very end. Flashes perfectly on top of Kindred Ultimate. You also have Concept 1v3 on the opposite side of the entire fight. Ends up going down to the Samira, and the reset actually gets a fair amount of lifesteal to come through, but gets shut down eventually by the combination of the Kindred and the Urgot, who survived that first aggressive. As we got updated, it seems like there's 3 members right now, no Scooped and no Sudsy, and that's not a big deal. Usually those two are going to be connected alongside somebody else, so hopefully there's at least 2 lanes at all times that are going to be having these Baron buffs applied to them. So this is Revival, who have a chance to get this gold lead back up into their favor if they're able to siege down some towers with this remaining buff.
Yeah, but the stats that they have right now, right on the side of AOE randoms, you kind of have to question some things, right? The gold lead, does it matter? AOE randoms, they have just been playing so phenomenally. They've been doing so many things right inside of these team fights. They've been able to take these early dragons that they got and secure it into a soul this time around. Well, last game we didn't get to see that. Revival now is looking for the Death Brush strat, is going to find that spotted out from the sweep, and Concept looking for a possible pick here. Pockets, you need to be a little bit careful. You need to put some respect on the name. That's going to be a lot of damage getting put on. The Encore is going to be able to be used. Concept going to not only be able to get the fear onto Josie. That's going to be a key member taken away. They do not have the Thresh Lander. They do not have the Thresh Hooks. Chim is looking to jump into the fight over here from the side. That's going to be a tower. We're going to look to fall here. You cannot walk up to just hit it freely, but it will find itself falling down. Scoop taking a large chunk of damage there. Have to play a bit safe on this, and this is the swift retreat from Revival.
Excellent call right there. Okay, there's a potential re-engage to come out, but I think without the Encore, there's not going to be much or too many legs to stand unless Chim gets an amazing kick into 5 members or something like that.
Oh, he's looking for it, man. He's going to flash away. He's not going to be able to find this going anywhere further. Chim is still in the midst of this fight. Is going to be looking for his angle to rejoin into the fight. Pulp's going to be going a little bit too far forward. Not going to be able to get him with the Q. Not going to be able to lay out the damage. Competition taking a heaping amount, and Revival on the retreat here. They do lose the Nautilus, but they are going to be able to make it out with their lives. Josie looking to catch somebody else out. You can't just recall in front of them like that.
Now you have to have Sudsy and Scoop with this range advantage try to clear this wave as fast as possible. Not going to save the tower, but at least they're going to prevent any more snowball from coming through. As, again, I was going to praise Revival for that massive pick-off onto the Thresh. They aren't quite able to keep everybody full health underneath the siege of that tower. Got a little impatient instead of waiting for the wave steps underneath, and instead is able to bring it down at the expense of the entire health bar of Scoop. And that was prompted this entire retreat that just came through from the side of Revival that led it to Randoms, of course, being able to chase down one additional member. This game feels so ridiculously close despite a 5,000 gold lead. It's not humongous, especially with that Ocean Soul here. It's still anyone's game to play. It's still also very difficult from Randoms, but they've been finding these breaks, finding these proper opportunities, and especially if Chim can hit one of these big kicks or these encores, keep tagging multiple members, there are chances, there are openings for Short Hop that are living within this squad, and especially because Putrefier's not done yet for Sudsy, going for the Rabadons instead, this heal cut still isn't perfect for every single member of this team.
It's not, and it is going to be PC Concept looking to just lay in the pressure, lay in some damage onto the Nautilus. Support caught out yet again. It's going to be leading into a lot of action. Chim going to be able to start this fight off by getting that action for themselves here. Chim is in the midst of this. Is going to be having a lot of damage being put back on Chim. Pulp is going to be able to kite that one on out, but the rest of the team from Revival is just going to be able to mop the floor with them. Competition in a terrible situation, not able to click the lantern. Scoop is going to be able to find him here. Competition is going to go down, and this is going to be Revival. It looked so good for AOE, but then Revival turned it around, and they're going to be able to take game number 2 of this best of 5.
Coming out from Revival's top laner all game, but also out of Scooped in that final fight, finding the important kill onto Short Hop while the front line was there from the side of Concept. Huge stuff. Pulp's ultimate also sets up this perfect little area where everyone funnels into, and they're able to use that fear very well. I gotta commend again. Revival's team fighting is a thing of beauty. Randoms are making it difficult for them time and time and time again, but the resilience is there. Nothing is wearing down this entire squad of Revival at all. Even in that early game where you had Kindred down 2 kills very early, that 3 kill, that triple kill that came through in that game revived everything else, living up to the namesake, of course, and now they sit up 2-0 against their opposition, trying to qualify for their second straight finals here in the UPL.
It's astonishing, right? Like, you do get to see them make mistakes like that, and then it's all of a sudden, like, you saw Pulp really behind in tempo, playing this Kindred. You and me were both like, this is a lot of mistakes that we're seeing coming out here on this Kindred, and then slaps themselves on the face and back, they're awake, they're ready to rock and roll. But you gotta shout out the individual performance that's able to support making a comeback like that, right? You gotta talk about these solo lanes, and honestly, Sudsy and Concept, they've been so good inside of these solo lanes, and they've been phenomenal on these picks, making sure that they're able to be not only diverse, but also be able to take consistency, like taking the Urgot second time in a row, and yet again having an impact on this champion.
Mistakes are there from both teams. I love that Randoms are finding these opportunities to exploit the mistakes of Revival, but they haven't been able to convert it into a win. They're this close in this game, though. One more fight breaking loose that allows Samira to go ham, and all of a sudden we're looking at a 1-1 in a 4-game series immediately, but instead comes back to Revival. I have to give that completely to Scoop. The 2 or 3 fights, if it were any other ADC or somebody had positioned even a little bit worse, those fights completely flop on the other side. Scoop's ability in that game was tested time and time again, and I have to give him complete props on this Varus for not needing a Thresh or a Tahm Kench to play defensive, instead putting that onus on himself and being able to play, put on those blue suede shoes and make sure to dodge out on those skill shots. You can't rely on that every game, but Revival able to get away with another win and set themselves up for now match point.
Independent AD carry that don't need no Kench, baby. But ladies and gentlemen, be sure not to touch your browser, because about this much, that's how long you're going to have to wait for us to be able to get into our analyst desk, as they're going to break down game number 2 and get us ready for game number 3 here. So make sure you don't touch that browser, as we will be right back.
And welcome back to That's Everybody yet again. Rapture, Beats on Boulevard, and OPT is Sam fan, or right now for the current season, See It Law fan. But we won't tell nobody that. It's all good. I'll make sure to hide it from Reggie fam. I got you. Don't worry. But aside from Reggie, let's talk a little bit about what we saw with this game. What kind of management between these two teams really came about. And let's get it out of the way. My main gripe going into this game that I see for 3.2 is this. Yo, why are we fighting so much? Why is there so much violence unnecessarily between so many different times here, B? Because you saw throughout this entire game, we're taking so many skirmishes, but trailing back a little bit towards AOE, because this early game for them looked a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a little bit of spoilers there with the unkempt skirmishing here. Early game goes really well for AOE, and it's so nice for them that they're able to get some serious leads going. The jungle lead was actually insane for Josie. Pulp was for all intents and purposes, out of the game, but until this very moment is when it became a problem here, because the sustain, the shielding coming through from Sudsy on this Karma actually allows Pulp to get a triple kill here, just barely living with the tiniest sliver of health that could tilt even the calmest of individuals. Means that now all of a sudden Pulp somehow made it back into the game here, and that power Pulp got from kills like that was something that AOE didn't necessarily seem to respect with how they were playing afterwards as well. They were still playing very forward, still, like you said, open to a lot of skirmishing, and that power Pulp got for themselves really started to kind of show itself in the fact that they were starting to lose a lot of those skirmishes.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of catapulted them into this mid game for the side of Revival.
Even a burb.
Overall, though, I think I really like what I see from AOE, like we were talking about in the early game. They have control over these neutrals, but there's just moments like this one right here that we see where Revival went a little bit too far forward, and the guys over there at AOE are probably just saying that victory was just only a short hop away, because he pops off right here in this fight, and really kind of brings the game back down to even footing. They're able to go get the dragon and get into Soul Point and everything, again having a lot of control around those neutral objectives. But I think overall, we were talking about it on the desk here, the comp overall felt a little bit wonky in terms of how they were going to operate. But I really liked what Josie in particular was doing in the early game. I just think that sometimes they reach a little bit too far and give Revival some ways to get back into these games.
And what made it hard too is that their comp was entirely reliant on Comp 9 landing those insane encores. And to his credit, he did land a lot of them. But as soon as he was not able to, you saw the team fight for AOE start to fall apart there, especially towards the end in a tight choke. You don't get as many people in that ultimate. It's really hard for you to actually win out on these team fights because you lack a front line compared to Revival, who has the Nautilus, the Urgot, who does so much damage on top of also being impossible to kill here. And it was pretty much, unless you saw those big plays come out from comp, like you're also seeing again here, there was no way for AOE to actually team fight.
Yeah, I think that the big saving grace about this fight is that the Lamb's Respite was used on the dragon to try to get it. A short hop tries to pop off here, almost does end up taking down the rest of Revival. And then a nice little cheeky steal from Chim right there. But like you're saying, without the front line, basically almost like a mono damage threat coming out from the side of AOE, where it was short hop or nothing. And as we saw in that last fight, when he pops off, it really is the success for AOE. We even saw it a little bit in the last game on his Varus, but I'm really hoping that coming into this next game that, there can be some changes that AOE does in terms of the early game transitioning into the mid game and not like going for these coin flip plays. But there's some problems still lurking around in that Urgot on the top side for Revival.
Yeah, three things. Thing number one, here's a concept for you, AOE. Yo, ban the Urgot. Like, just get rid of it. Because look at these stats right now. 18 KDA, 695 damage per minute, and the same as we saw as prop before, were 75% killer pressure throughout this entire game. You know that he's quite good at it. He's very proficient at playing it, both on weaker side and strong side too, if given the opportunity. They always have it at the fourth pick that we've seen so far within these two drafts. So picking, consider you are on red side again. This is something you do not want to opt into. You can see how you can see pops off with it, even though he's shut down early on. Then number two, like we were saying before, coin flip plays are definitely not going in your favor. I want to see a lot more reliable engages coming out from AOE if they ought to take this back, because things are looking a little bit dire so far. We see the strive out of them, but they're playing on these very thin margins so far in this game. Even with that Baron play that we saw Comp almost take it back. He almost got the Baron with no vision, right? Oh, which, by the way, quick stat for y'all, or little thing I noticed. In both these games so far, Revival, every time after the first Baron, AoE comes back, but the second Baron is where they actually start to pick things up, and suddenly the game just immediately goes in their favor. And if we see this as a trend going into the next games, it should be noted that Revival, at the 3-0, they will be the only team since Polaris Supernova to go for these back-to-back finals right here in the UPL. So looking to make history here if possible. So AoE, I'm asking y'all, bro, don't play for the Urgot. Play controlled. Play clean. Stick to your hearts, and every play you do, make it with your chest. That being said, I'm going to pass it off to Akasha's Rebel Fox and Travesty. Takes in the final possible game of the night.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and shout out to our desk again for being absolutely fantastic and putting in so much work inside of this series here. But my name is Travis. I am joined here by Rebel, and talking about putting work in the series, man, Revival has been doing just that here. They have been laid out a solid foundation inside this series, and now they are up 2 games in this best of 5. This has to be a reverse sweep, and this has to be AOE randoms looking to mount it right here, right now.
Honestly believe right now that AoE randoms, we've seen they've got the firepower for it. I want to see them take control of the game. That's the one thing they have yet to do. It is constantly that they're putting focus towards the scaling aspects, trying to drive into a 5-on-5 and coming up with creative ways to attack, and that's great and all. But you have to take one game of gold advantage. You have to say, all right, throw things at the wall, get ourselves a really solid draft to work with to begin the game, and try to build off that instead of saying, okay, our foundation's going to be built on objective control and all these other things. That last game, they had an Ocean Soul and still couldn't win things off because there was too much damage and it just wasn't enough to get through the opposition when it's so hard of a team to play. Give yourself ease of execution, give yourself early game composition to work with to try to get out that gold lead and take it to Revival instead of having Revival control things in the earlier stages.
Yeah, well, getting into the draft here, and all I got to say right now, right, we're going into it. We're on the same sides yet again. Let me get more Josie on picks like Udyr. That was absolutely a different player in comparison to the Morgana game that we got to see there. So I do want to see more of that, but Revival might not let that be a thing this time around. And I do want to bring up, we have had a lot of Varus priority here, right? In the first phase for AoE, they grabbed the Varus. In Revival's game number 2 here, they say we're first picking Varus. So I am very curious. We're seeing these players put a lot of priority onto it. And so far, I want to bring up, we have seen 2 different builds coming out from Varus so far too. So it's just like, not only are we getting the same champion with a lot of priority, we're seeing it for different reasons each time.
And good reasons on both times, because in both games it was, I would say in the last game it wasn't as important necessarily as like what it was in the beginning, but randoms used it as pretty much their backbone damage dealer, which is humongous. That's not something that's super common to do these days, but it's absolutely possible. But they weren't able to get space for it. So I'm curious if randoms are able to go back to that, or if Revival just put that priority and go for it immediately, whether randoms are going to ban that one away, what the plan is here. Because again, you have to take out Rumble, you have to start thinking, Urgot's going to be in this banning phase, even if it's in second phase, you have to think about all these different possibilities that Revival could be going for, and whether changing up your band's strategy or if you need just a different plan of attack to begin with, already showing they're considering something else by banning the Nocturne and then the Rumble. We're missing one of the bans that we had seen in previous games, potentially contemplating a switch up.
This could be interesting. They could leave the Diana up here, which would be a very interesting thing, because they have been showing in a lot of AOE randoms have been like, yo, we do not want this Diana on the board. Yet again, Alistair taken off the table. We saw 0 rail in that last thing, to both your surprise and my surprise when you see the Alistair ban come out. We didn't see that, but nope, Diana still stays banned here. First pick for Revival, what you got for us? Is it still going to be that Varus, or do you have priority on something else? Do you want to take away that Udyr?
Like, I thought Scoop was amazing on the Varus, so it wouldn't be just completely, like, horrible in order for that to come through. I do think that you're right, though, that if Pulp plays it, it is possible that the Udyr could be really valuable. You think about some of the control that Kindred had in the previous game, and whether that can be replicated, and I don't know that in game-to-game situations, you can pull that same kind of shenanigans and triple kill off that you did in the previous game. They got Pulp back into things, so honestly, if I were randoms, I would consider even going into the same duo combination. The Thresh was good in a couple of situations to pull people out of bad places and had some good plays. I know Pocus at the beginning of the game missed the flash play, but it was really big. But more importantly, I think you're right. I think the Udyr was really good for Josie. I want to see them go back to it as something aggressive. Do they go to Lee Sin this early to flex it between 3 roles? It's good if you can flex it between 3 roles. We've seen Shin play it. I'm not sure if Josie's got it in the pool immediately, or at least really heavily prevalent in the pool. So this is a bit shocking to me. I would have loved to see Udyr, but I don't think you can take it this early with your Lee Sin already off the board.
If you take Lisa in here, you never ever want to pick your jungler here, right? Like, this is, you want the air of mystery, right? I've been at this point in time, I've been playing junglers in solo lanes just because I've been getting first pick in all my drafts, and it's just because I'm like, hey, listen, you get the counter pick, congratulations. I'm just going to take this pick and hope I can hide it for myself, and that could be another thing. They might be also trying to force out the Urgot early too, right? Like, the Urgot worked pretty well into the Lee Sin, but Morgana gets locked in here, was completely absent in game number 2, and now in game number 3 we are seeing it, and does have a little bit of flexibility in its own right.
Say between Pulp and then Plux, but also I think Sudsy could easily play it, which I think is the one position we haven't seen it too heavily go into, which is mid lane, but it is possible to at least drop there, only as like a very, very rare flex. And I love the set acquisition, because this could be an interesting counter specifically into the likes of Lee Sin if Sudsy or Concept could take it, because I think it's one of the very few champions that can duel just about anybody in the very early game and come out on top, including Lee Sin, outside of like a really good ward hop into a kick at level 6. But even that, if you ward hop and he presses showstopper, all of a sudden you've been pulled into enemy territory, and that's not very fully sit, even if he's able to get out. So there's definitely counterplay to come, not to mention now with the Gnar. I think that set into Gnar is just a good matchup in general, whether it's the laning phase where you can put aggression on a mini Gnar, or in the later phases when he's trying to jump in and you can immediately bounce him right back out with the showstopper. So already like they played directly into the set with this Gnar pick, even if that's not going to be the matchup. I don't love that from randoms yet again.
Yeah, I will say too, like, a lot of people do hype up like the solo lane Lee Sin a lot, which is, it's fine. It's understandable why. But you know, when all the changes have came through and people started playing Lee Sin, his jungle win rate actually went up pretty significantly, if I remember correctly. And like, I know a lot of junglers are like, Lee Sin not that greatest, but with him having that appeal as a flex champion, does give you that ability to possibly take this into the jungle matchup, which I think would be great here. And I think Revival's play here is to just ban away possible components that go well with the Kai'Sa. Thresh being banned off here. We could even see a Nautilus taken off the table, another champion that would just really pair well with this Kai'Sa. And I think that's probably the only like unknown that is like, all right, we know exactly what kind of champions Kai'Sa likes to play with.
Rel is still available if that's something that they're interested in as well, not just the Nautilus, which has been really stable. And I think Kai'Sa Nautilus is like the guarantee. It's what I would almost certainly ban out right here, because I think with the set and also the Morgana, I feel like Rel just doesn't have the same kind of impact that you would normally want to have on the opposite side. Alternatively, if you're going back into a situation where you're like, okay, we're going to play pure aggressive Varus, you could draft Rel yourselves in the right situation if randoms fall into a trap where they draft a support here and they're not ready for the likes of the Rel pick to come through when that gets taken. So we'll see what the strategy is for Revival when this last ban comes through. They're banning another jungler, making sure that this Lee Sin, the pool is just pinched off, making sure that there's no Lilia to, I guess, enact anything, and Jossie obviously plays it, or at least has played it previously. Every jungler picked it up for a very short time. It's a very weird pick to come out here, so that has to be something that they've studied or scouted very heavily, making sure that randoms are not able to snag that one away.
Yeah, Lilia's actually really in a good place. I think a good portion of your AP junglers are in a really good place here. So yeah, like you said, scouting deep into it, but a Bard.
Yes.
I was not expecting a Bard to get locked in here, and there's some high expectations now on Puckus on this Bard pick here. You really, really have to do so many things correctly on this champion, and has a lot of priority in the lane and also in roaming around the map.
Yes. The biggest thing is of course, now Varus has been taken, which means you have to worry about the arrow. So Bard can't just leave lane willy-nilly. The other thing is that you haven't seen the support matchup, and Set already has good matchups in at least one of the solo lanes that exists already within the confines of this game. Now you're blind picking mid lane almost certainly right here, so it's probably going to be Set top. It's going to be Morgana in the jungle, and you're going to be picking mid lane here. Bard can affect the map, but this Nautilus combined with this Varus CC means that Kai'Sa's under constant threat. So that's going to keep Pocus sort of latched to the hip in this lane, which is partly due to, I think Plux knows that that's the case. Plux and him both picked that champion. There is no way we just got that locked in. That's awesome.
We have a Nasus in our game here, ladies and gentlemen, here with a tiny screen, but it's tiny Doge. But yeah, man, this is in the final Revival. It's like, yo, we're just gonna bring out some crazy stuff here, and that just still gives them a little bit of air of flexibility too if they want to, right? Like mid lane Nasus has been a thing in the past. Competition says, all right, I'm just gonna play the Victor here, and this makes sense into the matchup that you're looking at, and we get to see these the compositions and how they format. But honestly, this Nasus, such a concept champion, really like takes the game, takes it bit by bit, and then takes control of it once you get to that amount of stacks where it's just that breaking point.
I'm actually a fan of what's happened. So in the previous two games, we've seen Urgot come through specifically as like a counter matchup into anything else. I'm a little surprised they didn't go back to it, because it works pretty well into the Gnar. We saw that in the first game as well. The only real difference is like the range and the speed advantage. So you play very similarly on Nasus. You don't have the same kind of team fighting presence because you don't have like the percentage health damage on the shotgun knees and things like that. But that side lane presence that was there 100% of the time from concept in that first game is just going to be amplified to 1,000-fold. The other big thing is that concept on this Nasus is still in a good lane up against the Gnar, where you can punish mini Gnar, and even with your ultimate on, you can actually contest into big Gnar with lifesteal as well. So there is possibility on both sides. It's not an easy lane. It's not as good as Urgot, I don't think, but at minimum, it's an idea that I think that concept is playing with to go for a 4-1 strategy. Might be a little bit of toying from Revival for the first place as well.
Honestly, another thing I want to bring up too is you have this Nasus over here into the top side. I want to talk about the second top laner for the side of Revival, which his name is Pulp. Pulp has been in the top side. His proximity into the top side of the map has been astronomical and has been showing a lot of priority in there. And if that's the case here, yet again, we've seen Morgana. We know how fast Morgana clears. We know the priority that Morgana is able to establish. If you run into that inside of the top lane and this Nasus starts getting ahead, yes, you said it's a bit more of a difficult matchup, right? The Gnar is definitely going to be looking to try and bully this melee matchup, but you gotta think with the amount of proximity Pulp has been putting into this top side, there's pressure automatically from the champ select of, do you play weak side with Chim here? And do you just leave him on his own island to try and deal with this and hope he's able to absorb pressure on this Gnar and try to get your advantages elsewhere? Or do you try and null and void this Nasus and delay him from being able to get these stacks to being that threat that you were talking, being that threat where he's just amplified to 1,000 in side lanes?
Difficulty here, I think, is that specifically for randoms, the best matchup, pure lane-to-lane matchup that you got, actually. And it's surprising because it was picked first, was the Lee Sin, where you're playing into Morgana, where that Black Shield doesn't mean too much outside of denying the kick, which isn't huge, and also the E slow. But those aren't big, and it doesn't deny any damage. And Lee Sin will 100% batter a Morgana into the ground if you're not able to hit a Q and you're not able to prevent him from getting into auto attacking range, because the mobility on that champion is obscene and you're able to break things. So Lee Sin can hunt down Morgana, but you've got no other winning lanes. Lee Sin has to attack these lanes to make sure these people are comfortable. Set can stand back ridiculously the Victor lane and actually has kill pressure into Victor if played properly as well. Should be able to move first into River. Bottom lane's in the same place where like Kai'Sa, like Bard, does good damage, but Nautilus and Varus have a lot of damage to begin the game with when you add spells into the mix before that lethality comes in for the wave clear on the Q for Kai'Sa, and she could start to push out. And top lane, that's probably your best place to gank if you're Lee Sin. I think, honestly, despite being not a really great game to do this, Lee Sin's got to get real active real early. There is no time for camps. Start ganking, start hitting people, because if you lose that ability, these lanes don't go super well for you. There isn't really a timer. Your team scales better with Victor and Kai'Sa, but if you don't act quickly, Revival will fall into the same pattern they have in the previous 2 games and spike off to an early gold lead.
Yeah, bro, listen, man, FTF, man, you gotta put feats to faces here for if you're Josie, and that is gonna be the name of the game, because we are in game number 3 of this best of 5 AOE randoms. Your back are against the wall. Revival are the team that are up in the series 2-0 in what could possibly be one of the closest 3-0s that you've seen. Revival looking to try and close this out. We'll have to see exactly what will be the responses. Man, just a standard 5-point coming out here from the side of, well, both teams here. Nobody really taking anything risky. No surprise here in such an intense game here, as Sudsy looking to draw the line. He's across this line here. Nobody's over there to cross that line.
Good times. Able to draw. I wonder if he's drawing. He's trying to put the lines.
Yeah.
What if he can spell your name if you're fast enough? Do you think that's a possibility? He's trying something. I don't know.
I want to see now I want to see a championship set skin from Worlds. I want to see a Worlds set skin, and that's the signature, is drawn by Set's feet.
Yeah, being able to draw in the sand. I think that'd be a fun one.
I think that would be too. Yeah,
I think
that would be pretty good. Yeah, there you go. Hey, Riot, we're making ideas for you for free.
Right.
But yeah, I am going to be just, keeping my eye on this, because like you were talking about earlier too, like Sudsy in this mid lane matchup, Set actually has kill pressure. It's not even just that. At any moment in time when the Morgana comes mid lane, Sudsy can flash Face Breaker. And it's not going to feel good because that's just free setup for a binding. And yeah, it's just as simple as that.
It's set up for a binding for a number of different situations, and also just the base damage that comes with Set just means that you always have some possibility of stepping forward onto Victor, and unless he's just dumping mana into the wave consistently trying to get poke onto you, it's really difficult for Victor to try to manage that without getting shoved in early just because of Set's presence within this lane, being able to step up, especially with like fleet footwork. He's got Doran shield to start with, so there's a lot of health regeneration inside of this Set pick that lets him move pretty quickly inside the confines of the game, or at least step into the river pretty quickly to help out the Morgana, which is going to be necessary if Jossie runs into that, because again, there's some kill threat onto that Morgana from the AD threat that Lee Sin is able to bring into these situations, and shutting down Jossie is a really easy way for Revival to protect these side lanes where you have this Varus and this Nautilus with a bunch of kill threat, and Naz is able to kind of just sandbag this side lane. Do notice also Concept has gone into Doran's Ring and Unsealed Spellbook. Typically that's very defensive for the likes of the Nazes to begin the game as well.
100%. And I feel like there's another point that I do definitely want to talk about as we're kind of in this lull of the early game. I'm definitely curious on Pockets' ultimate, right? Like once he hits 6, and once he starts hitting those Tempered Fates, like that's going to be his team's setup for this Gnar, for them to be able to get in position with the gravity field and all this other stuff, all the different tools that AOE random have. A lot of it does focus around Pockets at level 6. And so I feel like we also have to keep our eyes on this Bard play that's coming out here. As, yeah, it's hype for us to be able to see the Nasus, but we won't get to hype up the Nasus until, like, later on in this. And you can see this right here. That binding was a little bit wide, Pulp.
try to assume that the move was going to come a little bit faster from competition. I think it was a full stun that came out from Sudsy instead of just a normal pull that usually comes through, and maybe that's what Pulp was accounting for. Notice also, I'm trying to see what this wave is doing. It's actually bouncing out, which is bad because there was a cheater that came out from Scooped and Plux that came out right here. So if this collapse comes in, this is really horrible to come through.
Oh, he just used the Cosmic Binding.
He's gotta get the alcove. They gotta use the portal.
Magical Journey. They're looking for it. It's gonna be the face breaker. They're gonna be able to not survive. The cleanse comes out late, and first blood, the pulp.
Oh my goodness. What an amazing move from Sudsy. The flash facebreaker pulls them out of the portal just long enough to make sure that they can't get out of that situation fast enough for the binding or the hook to not be there from Flux or from Pulp, and the bot side punish comes in off the cheater that comes in from Scooped and Plux. Now they're back in looking for the counter jungle. Jossie is right here. He came back from the back. Does he get it? He's able to snag away.
Now there's two fights here onto the side as well. Forces the flash. Pulp is trying to get away, but the damage is insane. Bacchus gets taken down, but Josie finds one of his own here. It's just going to be taking a magical journey here. Shorehop's going to be able to chase him down. This is definitely going to be a kill for them. The gravity field is there, and Josie will chase it down, and competition finds the kill.
That he does. Way too far in the jungle. They're not able to steal the camp away. Ends up getting traded off. If they overstep their balance at least to some extent right there, right? Like you know, they get that solid play on the bottom side. They get a bit greedy. Morgana doesn't have AP to steal things off. There's not much to be said. This is that play from a second ago. Again, if they noticed this a few seconds earlier, watch. It's got to be an immediate move to the alcove and an immediate portal. Pocus takes another second to take another step a little further, and that buys the second for Sudsy to flash and Facebreaker to cause this dive to actually work. This is a situation where it feels like Morgana should have just gone for Krugs afterwards, but that's really good, though.
Very good indeed. In competition now, looking to trade with Sudsy, trying to lay out a bit of damage as this wave has been pushed in. And it's always so funny, too, because you were talking about earlier how, like, Set actually can have a lot of priority in this matchup. This is exactly how, right? Like, it's so crazy to see, like, this melee champion with no, like, major AOE is able to shove in this wave so easily, but it is a thing that is constantly happening. As you can see, just Concept's left alone on an island, just able to do what they need to do here. They're down in farm, but baby, you're Nasus. You looking to just stack up. You cool with it?
Another stacking champion. This time we have to track a much different stacks than what we saw in the previous game from Kindred, but it's still there. Notice they're really doing a good job defending Pulp inside of the river. It's not just Sudsy, but it's also the bot lane moving pretty consistently. They actually know relatively well that Chim is going to have push for a while. It's been a very defensive laning phase from Concept, not trying to use Withers to go aggressive, and instead going for really heavy stacking mechanics, knowing it's going to be very defensive play, trying to save the ultimate and the health bar as much as possible, and giving up minions. He's down 20 right now, which is huge. This does give Chim perhaps the first real lane advantage that he's had during the course of the laning phase, but again, Concept isn't playing for the earlier stages, which is why you see them coming back to bot side again and again and again. Thankfully, this time, it is, of course, AOE randoms who are able to catch on to that. Notice Chim also using this top side priority, getting a nice ward, was spotted out, so they know that that's going to be the case, and can just kind of go back to this stacking mechanism where he's going to be working on making sure that you're going to be an absolute boss. The Sheen is done, which means that there is some potential for poking away with this Q, especially if Exhaust or something are available there for the side of that kind of all-in potential, but it's not going to mean too much heavily. Again, I don't expect Concept to go all-in onto Gnar unless you find a really solid situation.
But Rebel, look at this. The most important thing of this is Pulp isn't going topside at all, and look at the pressure that is available. We're seeing Pulp and Sudsy just work together in tandem over and over again, but now Scoop getting jumped onto. The second they leave, the action breaks out. Short Hop finds the kill onto Scoop, as Josie finds an excellent play together with Pocus, and that is what we were wanting to see from this bot lane, these unique gank paths coming into play.
I loved that so much. It was just the delivery of the Lee Sin into the lane, not a fast enough movement from anyone. Can't put them into the wall or stop them before they're able to get back. Lee Sin able to find that nice insect to put Scoop back into the team even after the ultimate goes on a Short Hop. I also love, like, this had to be perfect communication because Short Hop has cleanse, did not burn cleanse on that ultimate because the communication was there from Jossie that he's flashing for the kick. If Short Hop uses the cleanse and burns that extra tool, that's something that can be used to aggress against them. Instead, holds it, knowing Jossie's going to get ready for that insect. They get the kill anyway onto this bottom lane, and that it's a punishment returned from that earlier play that had come through, and that's Jossie striking onto the map exactly as necessary.
And now you see this Nautilus roaming around into the mid lane, and we get to see the roam off between these two here, as Pockets is down here as well. And this bar definitely has a bit of priority on its own right, but Pulp is here as well at level 7 on this Morgana, and definitely has been doing a great job onto it, making sure to clear out these camps and have a lot of pressure in a lot of these situations, as we see 3 members over here towards the top side. And it's just a little bit of a dance that we're seeing between these two teams, as Rift Herald is being started up by the side of Revival.
They have now moved a bit more of their pressure. Yeah, they stopped it. Again, they haven't had control of this top side for a little while. That's why it was a bit confusing to me why they've decided to shift up into this top side, but they lost quite a bit on bottom. So they've shifted their warding, but then, again, they've shifted out of that pit. So it's like, if you're going to lean into that side, you can just move your support up, and your Nautilus can kind of be hovering that area, have 4 members. You don't have perfect vision, but you don't really know much else. You did just see Pockets enter your jungle. You know that Short Hop's out of lane, and this is the opportunity Pulp's going to take with the information on the map to grab the Rift Herald while they have the opportunity. It would be interesting to see a topside gank immediately after this, because Varus is clearing this bot side way relatively quickly, so they're not going to be able to respond with an easy bot side play without Pocus's level 6, which they don't have. A portal could come through to deliver jealousy yet again, but I feel like they're prepared for this. That's why they're standing so far back right now. I'd love to see Pulp immediately make a beeline for this Gnar to try to get Concept broken out of this laning phase. There's Pocus coming in, finding this. It was a back from this bottom lane, just making sure that defense is there, and it's Pulp that also finds it back. So they're not going to end up trading on both sides of the map, trying to make a play on that top side. Instead, they're going to take their Rift Herald, they're going to walk away.
Yeah, and big thing to talk note of is that Puckus, somebody I was talking about, when they hit 6, I want to see what exactly they do with it. They're getting a recall here, and I'm expecting Bar to go ahead and roam into like this mid lane, or roam over with this Lee Sin for a moment to try and set up a play possibly somewhere on the map. Could even go to the top side and try and just break Chim out of the situation. I do want to also take note of the fact that Concept has caught up in CS, right? There was a big differential between these two, and now Concept is catching up in the CS differential.
Able to use a bit more. Again, once the Sheen is locked in, it looks like some of the components are coming in too, as that's going to start to load in this damage, this tankiness, this cooldown reduction from the ability haste. It's all going to start stacking towards this Nasus being a very legitimate threat up against this.
Oh!
Nice kick.
Josie making plays. The gravity field forces the flash to come out. Temper Fate not going to be able to connect, as that was completely blind. But I honestly, a series of things at AOE random kicking this off, but unfortunately not able to find the kill they wanted.
A lot of ultimates burnt right there. A good amount from pretty much every single member of this team in exchange for the flash coming out from the Nautilus, which is important. So there is at least that to pay attention to. That's something pretty big to keep track of, is like, what can they do with these tools? That's Competition taking a pretty big haymaker right there. And Pulp is here to try to shove out this lane to try to get Sudzia back, as Competition had used TP a couple of times in this laning phase to find Rift Herald also dropped. There's a lot of attention, and Bard's here to deny it. They're literally just dropping this to try to get Sudzia out of this lane right now, because he's stuck here with an Iron Spike whip. They're going to pull a couple. Pocus's ult is down. Okay, that's really unfortunate, because that could have stopped a couple of plates going over. Sudzia's also not going to be able to back, because the wave was reset, so nothing really accomplished there that was necessary here from the side of Revival. I want to see Pulp just step right back into mid lane and try to get it back here for Sudzia, so that he can come back onto the map with enough pressure to put into Competition.
I feel like this has been a theme that we've seen here today, is overly aggressive moves coming to bat you back a little bit later on. And you're looking at it. And by the way, Nasus stacks 228 currently at about 13 minutes right now, as Chim looking to aggress onto them. But right now, Concept getting a nice little bit of stacks for themselves.
They are. 315 is typically the mark for a really good Nasus. That's about what you should be striving for within this laning phase. So that's a pretty good benchmark to at least compare to try to see if you're on the route. It's not perfect, I think. Again, in a range versus melee matchup with percentage health damage and the fact that it's Gnar, you had to give up a number of minions early. You're losing minions to the tower, things like that. So it's not perfect, but at minimum, it's kind of approaching that area where all of a sudden Nasus at 15 minutes is going to hit that benchmark and look okay in terms of the damage that the Q is going to start doing. When you start one-tapping minions, when you start hitting the tower exceptionally hard, that's when this really starts to kind of spike ahead here for the likes of this pick to try to start side laning the way it needs to. This is the slowest early game we've seen from both of these teams combined throughout the entire series so far. 6 kills at 14 minutes. Nobody with a gold advantage right now. Again, I feel like the later game scaling here from the side AOE randoms is actually going to come out with the Victor and the Kaisa.
Oh. Concept is going to get jumped onto, is going to go ahead and, but who let the NASA's out? Josie taking a heap in a mouth, take him for a ride. Sudsy going to punch him into the face and be able to find that kill for themselves here. Concept looking to continue this on forward. He said, bring it over here, Nar. What did you think you were doing? This is Concept's lane.
He stacked him too. That's the worst part about this. So now Sudsy finds this TP play onto the top side of the map. This is competition getting punished for constantly TPing back to lane and using this mana, using this extra AP to consistently wave clear into the set. This is an aggressive TP to support the lane here from Sudsy. Nice play into the middle of this lane. They find this. I love that Concept does not even bow for a single second. Presses that ultimate. Calls there from Sudsy. They say go, go, go. 2 Qs onto Jossie. Nearly done. Sudsy flash ultimate. That's going to be enough to bring him down with 1 extra auto attack. Jim nearly out of Mega means that all Concept has to do is walk under tower. That Wither is more than enough to deny. I love this last little bit as well. Flash Q over the wall, gets that stack, and top tower also under immense pressure. They didn't end up capturing that one. Instead, used this back to go get Divine Sunderer, but still, nice defensive play gets this gold advantage for Concept in the top side, and a bit of gold also in the pockets of Sudsy to break that stride breaker.
There's no need to bow when all you can do is just wow everybody, man. This has been just Concept constantly having a big effect. Pulp being a bit cheeky there. You gotta watch out. The Nautilus not going to be caught up by that. The Temper Fate not going to be able to connect as there's still Pulp over here inside of the pit, but Josie's going to be able to find that kill. One to the Nautilus. They don't get distracted by the Tantalizing Morgana over there onto the side as they regroup with Sudsy. But... very interesting series of events there towards the bot side. Got a little overzealous.
Just a bit. And that's going to be second Dragon. This is the 3rd time in a row where we've seen randoms. They come out here with this immediate Dragon priority. They're down in gold a little bit. This is the least amount of gold they've been down. It's going to be mid-tower pulled here by Pulp and Sudsy in exchange for that Dragon that's going to be pulled here. So this is now the 3rd game in a row where we've seen about a 2,000 gold advantage at about this mark in the game for the side of Revival in exchange for these early objectives. Again, I think the one difference is this time randoms have a really good late game comp. Pulp in some danger right now.
Yeah, Pulp is in big danger. The Chaos Storm is a brewing, and Pulp is going to get lasered down. Josie able to find safety to get away from Sudsy, and Pulp overstepping their bounds a bit. And this has been something, it feels like we've seen this all series long from the side of Revival, right? A couple over-aggressive moves once they find their groove have been things that have cost them dearly in a lot of these moves. They make something right, and it's followed immediately by a mistake punished by AOE randoms. But here we go, TP coming into the bot side. It's Scoop getting jumped onto by Chim. Chim says, hello, I'm coming out here to make a play and find a kill on the Scooped.
Okay, Chim gets a play in the bot side. Now Concept has free reign on this top tower. I'm not sure. Jossie will have to cover. I don't think he can.
I don't know if this is exactly a cover you can do here.
That ain't it, yeah. Jossie does kick him out from under the tower, so he has to walk back under. And because the ultimate had been popped, the AoE's there, so that's going to be a problem to deal with, especially with how mobile Jossie is. So this is a denial of this top tower from Concept to start with, at least. But that means a back had to come through from Chim. Notice that there are 4 members on top side now, also from Revival, to try to play into what is the Rift Herald pit at the moment, if not a little bit more, by leaning into top side. They already lost bottom tower. They didn't get much from that. Mid tower was already exchanged, so it's not first tower gold. I still think they should lean into Nasus right here, because Nasus, needs some assistance to try to get out of this laning phase. If you break him loose, there could be some danger in the side lane for Chim eventually, and you saw that with Sudsy just a minute ago, but they haven't been able to find anything else aggressive up there. They've just kind of been leaving him to his own devices, waiting for him to take over the lane so he can start putting pressure on the tower.
I think he's actually getting into that point too, right? Like, he's at 400, just about 400 stacks at this current moment in time. And I feel like that's kind of the breaking point. We actually saw Chim taking a bit of a beating. Josie's having to kick him away with that Dragon's Rage kick to push him away. And you see this, right? Like, over here towards the bot side, big thing to take note of is Kaisa, short hop, push that lane in right beforehand. Look who's there to catch it before it even hits the tower. Jim taking a little bit of a tussle along the side with Sudsy. Wanted to duke it out a little bit.
This is the wraparound I'm waiting for right now, because I was watching this play kind of develop as blue buff.
Oh. Chaos Storm was put down. It's just going to stay in place. And now Competitions is caught out of position. The depth charge is there. The gravity field put down, but it's not enough to secure anything. That is a kill going over to the Morgana here. Temper Fate does connect onto Pulp. They're looking to see if they'll be able to capitalize into something more, but not enough damage to come in. Josie does not want to go forward with that, as that will be a loss of his life.
just did, I think, a third of competition's health. Or my apology, yeah, Concept did a third of competition's health bar with just one Q right there. As this Naz
432.
back 435. Yeah, this Naz is getting really scary. This is starting to be a problem. Tower also just taken that solo gold in the tower as well, so the side lane is starting to get a little bit rough to deal with here for the side of randoms who aren't able to put that pressure on. This is kind of a scary situation to be in right now. If you're them, because suddenly this Nasus is kind of difficult to deal with in this side lane, and everybody else isn't quite far enough into to deal with it.
Where do you escape? Where do you go?
I
There's a
don't know.
dog here on the other side of the
Look at
fence,
this
and you need to
damage.
beware. Beautiful kick coming out from Josie. Completely halts what Revival want to go for. It goes in like an assassin, but is immediately going to get caught out onto the side. Is going to get rooted up, and no follow up to commence onto him. But Short Hop, yet again, keeping their eyes out for the play.
All 100% off of Jossie, who is able to get a nice kick from the Nasus, who is in ultimate, into this Morgana to bring down, I think it was like 60% of the health because of all the bonus health that was stacked on a Nasus at the time. So great by Jossie, and then again, a nice aggressive play from Short Hop to jump in, find that kill as fast as possible, and then get out of dodge really quickly. The flash was necessary, which could be a useful tool for later, especially, again, given the fact that Nasus exists and that Wither exists. If you're in a team fight, you don't have Cleanse or someone to peel for you, there's some real trouble that Short Hop could run into, especially with how powerful Nasus has become, but you can still kite out a lot of these fights. If you're putting this Victor and this Kai'Sa together, especially when Bard's around, there's enough peeling power, I would have to assume, to allow them to not have to worry too heavily about Nasus or really about, Set at this point in the game. I'm waiting for Scooped to get to the point where he can start to contest these fights, but he's been the one that the side of Randoms have been aggressing against. Another asset to this game that has really not been here from Randoms is attacking the win condition of Revival for the late game, and in this one, they are doing so. They're even in gold. They're
Wait
up
a
in Dragon.
second.
This fight's going okay.
Yeah, this fight is going really south, though. Josie's going to be able to find that kill, but over on the other side, Concept is bringing down the Kane, and it's going to be Jim. He's going to be able to knock out. He's going to be able to throw the Nasus up against the wall. The exhaust coming through as that Spellbook was able to give him this utility. Short Hop taking half a bet of their HP, while Slitzy's able to pick up the kill onto the Lee Sin. Short Hop trying to jump into the fight, but it's going to get binded and shut down. And they spent so much time whittling away on Concept, but he does not go down.
A ton of health, and the Frozen Heart does not make it any easier, so that's a one fight where, again, that's a flash from Short Hop that I think maybe you want back. If you don't trade that kill onto Pulp earlier, maybe if you hold that flash, there's some possibility or counterplay to be able to work forward in that fight, get that passive, and get that Collector running in this fight, and maybe start snowballing, but instead, Concept is just able to run into this team. That exhaust was huge to burn off Short Hop into the backline, can't put enough DPS in, and can't burn through the Nasus fast enough. Now, all of a sudden, gold back into the pockets of Revival. They're taking the Baron right now. Dragon is being traded, so that will be third Drake, I think, to the side of Randoms in this entire process. So that is one thing to consider. But again, it's Revival with this gold advantage with a team that they're looking to play 5-on-5 with. And if they find it, which they have in a couple of situations, they've been able to find their wins. I still have my qualms about competition and Short Hop outscaling eventually, which is my fear for Revival this game, but at minimum, this is the same game plan we've seen 3 times in a row from Revival, and it worked for them both of the first 2 games.
But man, you look over at the side of Revival and look at the amount of CC that they are able to pack in with this composition. You got Nautilus set alone. That's all you need in terms of CC, but you can stack up more. You've got the Varus ultimate ability that you're able to lay out. You got the Soul Shackles. You got the Binding. You've got all these tools. You catch one person out and they are locked down. Throw away the key, and Pockets getting caught out and taken out just like that. You start one bit of CC and a train gets ran through.
That does. Really nice little combination there as they take the entire top quadrant, trying to get Varus the ability to take top tower and maybe go for top inner tower here as well, as they can use the defense as Jossie clears out a couple of wards. With this Baron buff, it's going to be hard to slow this down with all the kind of pressure they're putting around this top side. You have to go all the way out and around, and Shim almost in Mega should be able to help with this wave, but you also have Nasus pushing in mid, which is difficult for competition to deal with at this exact moment. As you see right there, just bullies down this mid inner tower, does the Nasus, and this is going to go down as well. So the siege is difficult to try to stop from the side of Randoms without forcing a fight. So slowly this gold continues to trickle into the side of Revival as this game continues on, and they're pulling off this gold from the map that's necessary for them to try to win some of these fights because of the scaling aspect that's there for the Victor and the Kai'Sa.
have a scaling advantage, but man, at what cost? Well, you're bleeding so much right now from the side of AOE random, right? You look at the amount of gold that is coming out. This is slow and steady, but I think Revival are playing this at their pace. And the biggest thing too, right? For this series here, AOE Random have not been able to find a way to be proactive with their composition here. They have not been able to find this tempered fate that they so desperately need to start off something, get the momentum going in their favor. They haven't been able to find this pivotal moment, and it's just been Revival constantly starting things, constantly finding people out of place. And I feel like this is a trend that has just been continuing on and on and on and on right now. And Revival really showing why they are this team that you have to keep your eyes on.
I love the way that they're also moving around the map right now. They're just making sure to move with Scoop so that he can continue to use this Baron buff to shut down towers and to try to continue to pull gold off the map, which is what they need to try to win some of these fights. They're also going to be forced into a 5-on-5 here in just about 2.5 minutes when the next dragon spawns, which has been the intention behind randoms every single game, which is to try to force this final 5-on-5 with this dragon stacking mechanic, and it hasn't been working really in the last 2 games because Revival's comps have been better. This is the first time that randoms are running a composition that will, but now Concept is also level 16, has this insane side lane presence that you're going to have to worry about, has Ghost and Cleanse right now, so it's near impossible to try to bring this guy down. They're trying to play onto him right now, actually.
Yeah, but they can't find CC onto him. They have to turn their attention back onto the Morgana immediately. But now Concept gets to run havoc. He's running wild over here onto the backside of the team. There's 2 members falling, and Concept, Sudsy, they go forward. They know no other direction. The Haymaker coming in, wither him down. The cleanse can be there, but you can't cleanse the Kane. As Concept is looking to continue this on forward, he'll take care of Lee Sin. Don't interrupt him when he's feasting. Concept finds it. They're going to be able to find kill after kill. That is a clean ace, and they are just going to look to take this inhibitor. And this should be the game. Actually, no, Pockets didn't go down, but this should still be the game.
It's really close. Chim will be up in about 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds on competition as well, who has enough wave clear maybe to stop this. I think if you go for a full win, there will be competition. No, never mind. They've done it now.
Yeah, look at how much damage the Kane does, man. It's
they just got to power things down. They'll be fine. Yeah, this should just be the end of the game here.
Yeah, Concept just hitting away at it. He says, this net is mine. We're securing our ticket. We'll get that 50 gold paycheck for themselves. And that is going to be Revival picking up a 3-0. And honestly, a very, very controlled game number 3 from them. And honestly, a shift of styles. The NASA's coming out big inside this game.
To side lane, but they also were able to work around like what was effectively a losing bottom side, where like Varus and Nautilus didn't get too much in the earlier phases, which is almost like all this aggression had come into them to start the map, and they were still able to make the map bend to their will, which is really impressive, mostly off the back of, again, what Revival was known for before. Their solo lanes doing such incredible work between the set mid lane and also the Nasus in the top lane. They were able to make enough happen in that mid-game fight off the back of that one Baron take snowball to end up closing that game. They had no